Mr. Mayor. We're having audio difficulties right now, so no audio is going out to the live stream.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a thumbs up. We are moving on to the additions and deletions to the agenda. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I move for approval of additions to the agenda.
Second.
Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. We have a revision which I am to read. The discussion section of the motion was modified to correct a typographical error, replacing ORS 90.255 with ORS 91.255 and adding a reference to ORS 90.600, and this is for motion 5A. And that is the end of the additions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwen.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. All right, we're moving on to council and city manager comment. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? No? Well, I would like to share that on February 5th, the governor's office sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security. The governor's office confirmed last night that that letter was never sent to the city of Salem or my office. We are not alone in that. There are many cities within the state that I believe did not receive notification of that letter. I just wanted to be real clear. There's been a lot of misinformation floating around about that, and I wanted to clarify. So thank you. City Manager Nambury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about what this community has been experiencing over the past couple of months. Tonight, we have a few items on the agenda that connect back to action this council has taken to address community safety and the impacts of ICE activities in Salem. We'll hear an update on the December 1st emergency declaration, and there is going to be some discussion on the Budget Committee's recommendation from January 14th meeting regarding funding for social services. This fund supports residents in need through housing, food, legal, and medical assistance. So before we begin, I think it's important to acknowledge the moment this community is in right now. Residents have expressed concerns about ICE activities, and a recent difficult incident has raised questions about safety and police response or the police response protocols. While these are a part of a larger national conversations, their impact is being felt here in our community, on our streets, in our neighborhoods. And then the people who are frustrated and they're looking for some reassurance. So as I stated publicly last week, the city condemns actions that create fear, intimidation, or harm. Everyone in Salem deserves safety, dignity, and respect. At the same time, we need to be honest about the limits within which we are operating right now. Salem does not control federal immigration enforcement, and our police department must operate within clearly defined legal authority. So that means we must act thoughtfully and lawfully in everything that we do. So several community members asked for clarification regarding Salem police response protocols. If we are alerted in real time to an incident, we respond to maintain public safety, document what's occurring, and attempt to de-escalate the situation. Any documentation and evidence is then shared with the appropriate investigating agency. If we are alerted after the fact, and the concern is about law enforcement misconduct, we direct individuals to the agencies that have actual jurisdiction to investigate federal conduct. Typically, that is the FBI or Department of Homeland Security. And I have worked here for 26 years, and I know many of our officers, sergeants, and lieutenants, and I work very closely with the DCs and the chief. I have full confidence in the professionalism and judgment of our police department. Salem Police will respond when called, document what they can, de-escalate situations, and ensure that information is shared with the agencies that have authority to act. In this community, and I know especially over the past 12 months, I have seen that we have always relied on each other to move forward. What that means is, thank you for giving each other that space for different viewpoints while recognizing our shared goals. So when I kind of look back over the past few months, what are those shared goals and what were we able to accomplish around this is, on December 1st, this council passed an emergency declaration acknowledging the real impacts. The declaration condemned actions that create fear or intimidation, called for lawful and constitutional enforcement, and made clear our expectations for fairness and humanity, especially for students, families, and vulnerable community members. Council also provided clear legislative direction, calling on Oregon's federal delegation to pursue comprehensive immigration reform, protect civil rights, and seek support for community partners serving those most impacted. Tonight, we report back on the work done in response to that direction. So there is an information report in the council agenda packet today. Tonight, the council will also consider financial support for nonprofits providing housing and food assistance, legal aid, and help with the medical-related costs. The mayor talked about it a little bit, but the city also, the city manager's office has received questions, several questions about a recent letter that the Governor Kotek issued with 31 of 241 Oregon's mayor, and neither the city nor Mayor Julie Hoy received this correspondence from the state, and I'm assuming that there was a sense of urgency in releasing that, and it was purely an oversight on the state side. That's what I'm assuming that to be. So as we move forward, it's important to remember that when I look at this community, Salem Police, city staff, your council, residents, we all are part of this community. There is no us and them. And my commitment and the city's commitment is to show up with transparency and care, and to act with the law, within the law, to support and serve everyone in our community to the fullest extent we are able to. And thank you, and I look forward to the conversation tonight. I appreciate everyone coming to these meetings and expressing your opinions and thoughts on this. This is a tough and complex topic. The community, the fear the community is going through is real, and I want to acknowledge that. So I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. Any other comments?
Councilor Vang.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight's agenda is pretty full, ranging from a wide range of topics. But I want to be clear and transparent to my constituents and the residents of Salem that my North Star, per se, that guides my every action and every vote I take is to prioritize the people, the families of this community who live here in Salem. And I want to make that be clear to those who are sitting in this room, those who are watching online, as you engage in the City Council and participate in our local government. Thank you.
Councilor Nordyke, did you have something? No? All right then. We have no proclamations, we have no presentations. We're moving on to public comment. Last, okay. All right, obvious decorum. We say this every meeting. Please treat each other with respect. Everyone is allowed 3 minutes to speak. When your time is up, your time is up. And please hold your applause if you can. We want to give everyone the opportunity to have their 3 minutes. And if we run long because there's too much of that in-between time taken up, we may have to end public comment early. So please be respectful of the rules of decorum. I'll call 2 names at once. And please come forward to the podium, hit the button till you see a green light, and please state your name, your address, and or your ward for the record. I'd like to call Sandra and Alex.
I am here on behalf of Latinos Unidos Siempre, an organization that fights for our communities to be safe and welcoming for all people, with the leadership of young working class people. Together with the community who is here, we demand that the Social Services Fund is passed, and we propose that $400,000 is allocated from the original proposal by the Citizens Budget Committee. This proposal came after months of community advocacy since 2025. $400,000 is a baseline to launch a social services project that is meant to serve all people in Salem. We would need nearly $1 million in order for this fund to be efficient. We are grateful for the solidarity of some of the council members who have shown action, but we ask that you do everything in your power to make this horrific situation for our families just a tiny bit easier to navigate. A $200,000 relief fund is not nearly enough. So if you pass this, I ask that you do everything in your power to increase it. On January 29th, a Salem resident and U.S. citizen was violently assaulted by ICE agents in our streets. The family of the victim has been left traumatized and is still dealing with the aftermath of this experience. The racial profiling that this family experienced has been an ongoing issue for us since last year. Yet ICE continues to terrorize our families. And the majority of people who are terrorized are simply vanishing. This is a real issue. I want you to realize the crisis that we are in. Your constituents need you to do everything in your power. We need you to be brave. While the actions of the federal government are out of your control, passing this budget is not. And doing everything you can at the city level is in your control. So I would like to ask everybody who's here, if you support the Social Services Fund in Salem, please stand up. And if you agree that it should stay at the $400,000 and not decrease to 200,000, please remain standing. We are here and we've been here because we need our communities to feel safe and to feel that everybody who's in an elected position is here to support us. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Alex and Samuel.
Good evening, Councilors. My name is Alex Sosa. I'm here with Latinos Unidos Siempre. We are children of farm workers and immigrants, the people whose labors feed Oregon, sustain the city, and keeps this economy alive. We are the working class. And I want to start off by saying I should not be here having to beg you to do what you already promised to do. These are Salem families. These are your constituents. These are the very people you have pledged to serve, regardless of immigration status. And let's really talk about what this fund really means. It means a family isn't one paycheck away from not being able to keep the lights on. It means a family isn't one paycheck away from being able to keep the water and electricity running. It means a family isn't one paycheck away from not being able to buy groceries. And it also means that a child can sleep in their own bed instead of the streets. This fund is truly a lifeline. Right now, working class families in Salem are living paycheck to paycheck. One emergency, an illness, a loss of a job, a detention, a sudden bill can push them into homelessness overnight. And who are these families? These families are farm workers, they are restaurant workers, they are caregivers, they are construction workers, they are students, they are people who make Salem run. When immigrant and working class families are harmed in Salem, our schools feel it, our neighborhoods feel it, our local economy also feels it. So when you cut this fund from $400,000 to $200,000, what you are really cutting is sustainability. You're cutting prevention. You're cutting the promise you made to the community, a promise that's not flexible when it comes inconvenient. For months, people have organized and shared their pain. They trusted that their council who would listen and to turn around and reduce this commitment tells the families and the survivors that it's non-negotiable. Well, let's make this clear. Our survival is not negotiable. As children of immigrants, as young people from working class families, we are done politely asking to do the bare minimum to keep our communities afloat. We are demanding that you fully fund and commit to the fund. Because this is the truth. We are here every meeting and will continue to be. We will still be keeping organizing, and we will continue to hold every single one of you accountable for the decisions you make tonight. Thank you.
Samuel and Marisol. Samuel and Marisol.
Hola, tengo 9 años, estoy aquí por mi familia. Quiero demandar que se pase el fondo para las familias. Si ustedes me representan, entonces pasen este fondo. Si no vamos a llenar este cuarto de personas cada mes.
Marisol and Sophia.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm 12 years old. I'm here today testifying like I have any time during the school night because I love my community and we deserve more. The way things have been over the past months have been making me sad. It's heartbreaking to see empty cars in Lancaster left alone, cars showing our community members that were kidnapped by ICE, especially on streets that's typically so happy and full of life. A street everyone drives through every day. Northwest Salem has been targeted and traumatized, and we need strong leaders to speak up right when this happens. Not weeks or months after. We need leaders that are not afraid to advocate for the safety of immigrant families. The empty cars with broken windows belong to hard-working parents and families on their way to work. Their kids' worst fears came true. Those families were waiting for their loved ones to come home, but they never returned. Instead of being at home, they are now in a cold cell, falling harsh conditions hundreds of miles away, alone. When deportation happens, it not only affects your mental health, it also affects everything in your day life. It affects your entire family. People who are kidnapped are most of the time the main income of families. This matters when a family member is taken by ICE. Many families can't pay their rent. They don't have money to buy groceries, and whatever money they have goes to paying a lawyer to try to get their family member back. We as students can't sleep because of the worry we feel of waking up tomorrow and not having our parents close to us. Sleep doesn't matter to us anymore. We wake up early to make sure that our parents safely leave to work. This is not how kids should live. This is why that when black and brown kids talk about trauma, you guys don't take us seriously. Right now we wonder about our families. How are they supposed to focus on our homework or grades? You wouldn't understand the anxiety and stress immigrant families are living under. We are not savages, aliens, or monsters. If you had to wake up every day to live how we are living, you would not be able to survive it. But this is not normal. We as kids of immigrant families deserve more. Our parents deserve more. Most cities have passed emergency funds for immigrant families of 3 months ago. In Salem, we haven't. What are you guys waiting for? Do the right thing, pass the $500,000 funds for immigrant families, and speak out and we'll tap.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Sophia and Brian. And please state your name and either your ward or your address for the record.
My name is Sophia, and I am here again, and I will keep showing up even when it's hard, even when it costs me sleep, even when it means turns long nights, because my community is worth. It's because our community deserves safety, and because silence is not an option. ICE enforcement has been getting worse and worse. Parents are disappearing from their jobs and homes. Children are left behind in fear, confusion, and drama. This is our real life. Most immigrant families do not qualify for public benefits. There is no backup plans. There is no safety nets. When income disappears, families face getting kicked out of their homes, hunger, and loss of basic service that everyone deserves, like housing, healthcare, and food. No children have to carry this fear. No student should have to worry about whenever their family will survive this emergency. Relief found would help keep families stable and children safe. Protect our families. Protect our community. Approve the full $4,000 now. Thank you.
Brian and sir, please remember to state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Hi. Hola, me llamo Brian y estoy aquí otra vez y seguiré viniendo cada junta, aunque sea difícil. El estrés de la migra me ha causado mucho ansia y estoy aquí porque amo mi comunidad y porque nuestras familias merecen seguridad y porque el silencio no es una opción. Padres y madres están desapareciendo cuando van en camino a sus trabajos, saliendo de sus casas o cuando van a llevar a sus hijos a la escuela. Los niños se han quedado abandonados con mucho miedo, confusión y trauma. Esta es nuestra realidad. La mayoría de las familias migrantes no califican para beneficios públicos. Cuando desaparecen los padres, las familias no pueden pagar la renta, no pueden pagar comida. Este fondo de ayuda de emergencia ayudaría a las familias que han sido separadas por la migra. Protejan a nuestra comunidad ahora.
Sir and Liz, please remember to state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Okay. My name is Sir, and tonight I'm speaking not just for myself, but for an entire community that is done being scared, done being ignored, and done being treated as disposable. I am here as a young person who is angry about what is happening in my own city. My neighbors, my friends, and people I love are being taken by immigration agents. Families are being torn apart in silence. Children are coming home to empty bedrooms and unanswered phones, and far too many people have decided to look away. As if any of this is normal, let me be absolutely clear, this is not normal. It is traumatizing, it is unacceptable, and it is happening on your watch. I'm here to share a reality check about fear, a fear that has sunk into our homes, our schools, our streets, a fear that shadows us every day because people we love can be taken at any moment without warning, without humanity, without accountability, and while our community is living through this crisis, we are here fighting for 400,000. Let's be honest, that is not a luxury, that is not a favor, that is the minimum investment a city should be willing to make for people living under constant threat. That money means legal advocates to keep families together, mental health supports for traumatized youth, emergency resources for those displaced, and community programs that help us survive the instability created by these raids like Mano Mano, Luz, and Centro. And the most painful part that should weigh heavily on every decision maker in this room is how quickly this crisis has been normalized. People shrug, officials avoid eye contact, systems keep moving like nothing is wrong, but something is wrong. It is wrong to let families disappear. It is wrong to ignore trauma. It is wrong to claim the city cares about its people while doing the least for those at risk, for those most at risk. So tonight, I'm not just asking, I am demanding that you act, that you invest in the safety and dignity of the people you claim to represent, that you stop treating our suffering as background noise. We deserve protection. We deserve resources. We deserve to live without fear, and we will not stop showing up, speaking out, and fighting back until our community receives nothing less than the respect, support, and humanity it is owed.
Liz and Cynthia, again, please remember to state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Hi, good evening. I'm Liz, and I'm here to talk about when someone is deported and how it affects the entire family. Did you know when kids experience family separation, it impacts their entire physical, mental health for the rest of their lives? Family separation, when a loved one is taken by ICE, causes severe trauma and it actually disrupts a kid's brain development. It causes PTSD, depression, anxiety, stress. It triggers intense fear, toxic stress, and attachment disorders. It also causes fear of abandonment and long-term health effects that can lead to serious heart effects and even cancer. And in schools, it causes kids to have trouble with their grades and attendance. If you support ICE and support the psychological and war on families and children, because that's what is happening right now, as a community, is it important to advocate for the end of the family separation and to continue to advocate for basic needs, mental health and resources, and counseling too. As elected officials, if you do not vote for the emergency fund of $400,000 for immigrant families, you cannot call yourself an advocate for children. Thank you.
Cynthia and Sandy, please remember to state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
My name is Cynthia, Ward 5. The lesson you all need to learn as elected officials is that words hold no weight if there are no actions behind them. Immigrant families are being pushed into even more poverty, with the loss of family members being kidnapped and the terror being felt as Salem PD and ICE racially profiles any brown and black person on our streets. Migrant families have been living in absolute terror in all aspects of life, and you all haven't done anything significant for their safety and well-being. There are immigrant families in Salem that have been here longer than some of you have been alive, who migrated through deserts, through rivers, to escape the poverty the U.S. caused in their home countries by destabilizing them. Deporting migrants who are often native to the Americas. Physical and developmental damage on children caused by family separation is seen in how intense stress causes a surge in cortisol and adrenaline, which can rewire a child's brain, leading to long-term health effects like heart disease and cancer. More examples of psychological and emotional distress seen in children, apart from the severe anxiety, is also regression affecting their speech and their sleep. Intense clinginess, nightmares, anger, and numbness. The separation also disrupts the critical bond with caregivers. It makes it difficult to form healthy, stable relationships later in life and developing attachment disorders. Long-term behavioral outcomes also include the high risk of PTSD, substance abuse, and academic struggles. There is also a huge heartbreak and impact on the parents that we cannot ignore. Parents experiencing significant trauma, including profound grief, anxiety, and guilt, which can in turn affect their ability to support their children upon reuniting with them. If you care about the children you see at our bus stops every morning, the mothers who wake up at 4 in the morning every single day for work, the fathers that kiss their families goodbye when he leaves for work, not knowing if it'll be the last time he sees his family, pass the emergency relief fund. $400,000 is the bare minimum.
Sandy and Spencer Rosenau.
Ma'am, I'm separate from them.
Are you Sandy?
Yeah.
Okay, you're next up.
Pardon?
It's your turn to speak. You'll have
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
Thank you.
Please state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Sandra Fenicola, and I'm just representing a lot of retirees and families that are also poor.
Thank you.
That are being taxed out of their homes, and they're just having problems of their own. But there's already money going to this to provide for housing assistance, health care, food insecurity, legal aid, and a lot of other programs are already there and already taxes from us. We've paid enough. We cannot go a whole lot more. I'm on a retire. I don't have more income. I'm physically unable to work. I'm 77. My family's there. We come from a whole line of immigrants, but they came legally, not illegally. But I'm still supporting the money and the stuff because I pay tithes, I pay the church. I get money out to the company and to send it to different countries. But we don't need any more programs. You already heard they need more. Pretty soon you're going to say, well, they need 2 or 3 million. They already passed 1 million, one lady said. So, you're just going to keep raising taxes and get this program bigger and bigger and bigger. I have a suggestion. Why don't you guys get one person that you know and you trust that is honest and build this project out of GoFundMe money or another build-up project where these people could donate money, and anybody else in the state that wants to donate where it's not out of taxes, because we've really paid enough. And they're talking about ICE. I have to tell you that I don't send them as responsible for this. They're not. They're doing their job. What I tend to say is the people that I hold responsible for their condition, because I love kids. My family is so well blended, we've got everything. And they're my family, and we help each other. But and I know they're angry and they're running into things, but ICE didn't do this to them. Their parents did. Now, I know they're not going to like that, but their parents brought them. They knew they were illegal when they came. They knew they were going to be facing this. So,
have some respect. You got it when you talk.
Please.
This is an open
Decorum here. Thank you.
I have worked since I was 9 years old. I have worked my whole life. I cannot now go out and do this. We built this country, and I still help them, but I cannot be responsible for what their families have put them into. They need to understand that we don't have money either. I don't get a raise, which you guys take out of my taxes, and if you do this, it's another program for us to pay more taxes on. And we cannot afford it. I've got hundreds of retirees that I know, and we're all having our own issues. We're not rich. So, and that's pretty much.
Your time has expired, Sandy. Spencer Rosena and Maria Young.
Mayor and councilors, my name is Spencer Rosena. I live in Ward 1, and I'm here on behalf of Can Do, Salem's Downtown Neighborhood Association, to speak on item 5B, the recommendation to create a social service pilot program. As a voice for our community, we stand with our neighbors against the ongoing violence of federal officers in our city. We hear and join the calls to take action to address this crisis, and we recognize the acute needs of our neighbors, including those impacted for social services such as housing assistance, healthcare, and legal aid. On Saturday, Candy's Board of Directors voted unanimously to recommend adoption of Resolution 2026-5 to create a one-time social service pilot program in the amount of $200,000. This is a small but crucial next step to build from December's emergency declaration in a real, actionable way and to support vulnerable Salem families. Funding for the program would be shifted from vacancies in the airport and city manager's office, which we believe is a prudent trade-off to address this urgent need. For these reasons, we urge you to approve this resolution, and I urge you to continue pursuing ways in which the city can protect and support our community, including identifying the additional funds recommended by the Budget Committee. Thank you.
Maria Young, and please state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Hello, my name is Maria Young, and I am from Ward 2. I'm here today to demand the $400,000 be approved for the social fund. I think the $200,000 is a low ball, and I think that $400,000 is a bare minimum. I'm also here as a community member and a mother and a white person who has every privilege except for that of a white man. Okay? And also, this is a social relief fund, so it would actually go to more people than just the community, the immigrant community. And I think that also this is a good time to address the fact that I think that Salem has a little bit of a white supremacy problem. Okay? So I think that it's just very interesting to me to see like this man's sign over here, who obviously did not read anything about what this relief fund was, or knows anything about legal immigration, illegal immigration, any of those terms whatsoever. And I think it's just very sad. It's sad that we're at a time where our country is being faced with its history over again, and we're choosing the same history. And we have a time right now in Marion County and in Salem as being the capital of Oregon to really do something monumental. Right? If we approve this $400,000, that sets a precedent for other cities. And so I'm here today, like I said, as a community member, as someone who was raised in Salem, went to our public school system, and also whose mother took me blueberry picking around farm workers. So I got to see how hard that they work in this community. And I've also got to see them and be a true people that really use joy as resistance. In the face of everything else that's going on in their communities, the fear that they are living with, that they are still the people that I see using joy as the biggest part of resistance. And so again, today, I just ask that we demand that $400,000 be approved, and it is the bare minimum. And I also ask that if you did not receive that letter, Julie Hoy, a way to be transparent would have said, I did not receive the letter, but I would have signed it. Okay. Thank you.
Kendra Tibbett and Elise Strauss, please announce your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Forgive me, but you guys have leaned too far to white hatred, though. Seriously.
So, obviously, I'm not Kendra Tibbett.
Please control your outbursts, or we'll have to move on from public testimony. We'd like to give everyone their 3 minutes tonight. If you make that impossible, we can't do it. So please go ahead, announce your name and your ward or your address for the record.
I'm Barbie Taylor, and I am Ward 1. I'm going to read Kendra Tibbett's testimony from Ward 2. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have been a community advocate for the past 10 years. I am testifying today in support of social services to fund the $400,000 to individuals and families impacted from ICE. I have 15 years of caregiving experience in this community throughout that time. You know, I'm going to skip to the part that I like the most, sorry. Each one of you needs to ask yourself what you would do if masked men were profiling white people in this community, bashing their windows in. Each one of you, what if your window got bashed in? What if an officer who didn't have any identification demanded that you get out of your car? I'm not getting out. I'm not getting out of my car. I would do exactly the same thing that Maria did. That's what she says. Fund this little teeny tiny itty bitty thing that the least you could do. And Julie, please, for the love of God, tell us, would you have signed that letter? That's what we all want to know.
Elise Strauss and Rachel Atchison.
My name's Elise Strauss. I live in Ward 8. So after Maria was brutalized by ICE a few days ago and the Salem Reporter article came out, one of the things the police said, besides your condemnation of the use of illegal force, the police said, we understand this incident and many other incidents involving federal law enforcement have caused concern in our community. The city and the Salem Police Department remain committed to the safety and dignity of all community members. For who? Guess what? People don't feel safe. They don't feel like they're being treated with dignity when a woman is brutalized in the street and the police say nothing other than make an insulting statement like that. You can't remain committed to the safety and dignity of all community members and not recognize the violence ICE is perpetrating on Salem citizens. Where is leadership saying we want ICE out of Salem? Instead, there's a backdoor complicity in letting ICE run loose in our city. You're not telling the truth about that February 5th letter. According to the Salem Reporter article that came out a couple hours ago, they contacted you on the 5th, on the 6th, and today asking for your input. You've ticked off items from the emergency declaration, but they're almost cosmetic. One of them is coordination with community partners to address the emergency impacts of federal immigration. Did you do that? Did you sit down with any of the stakeholders? Did you show your faces? The opposition to a dedicated fund for the Latino community, so succinctly stated by Councilor Gwynn, because everyone is suffering, is the same purposely and willfully fake Christian bullshit from the Black Lives Matter movement all over again. You're willfully putting blinders on and not taking accountability for the fact that our system treats people of color unjustly. You just can't give money to brown people, can you? We're getting arm's length, strongly worded statements that have no depth to them. And you keep saying, we can't do this by ourselves. Local government cannot do this on our own, but you can. You can stand with the immigrant Latino community in so many impactful, easy ways. And it starts with statements such as, we want ICE out of Salem, and meeting with the Latino community, and providing money to counter ICE terrorism. The $200,000 distributed 4 ways, it's not enough. It's not what we asked for, and it's not what the Budget Committee recommended. What are you doing? What the are you doing?
Rachel Atchison and Alan Roche.
In Ward 3, but I'm reading comments from my friend Kathleen, who lives in Ward 7, Kathleen Treppa. She had a veterinary emergency and wasn't able to be here tonight. She says, first, I support Councilor Vang's request that staff research the state of rental housing in Salem. The best way to address the homeless crisis in this community is to help people stay housed. One of the submitted comments from a property owner indicated that 50% of their units turn a year, a shocking and expensive turnover rate. Why are so many people moving in and out, and why would it take 3 months to flip the unit each time? Councilor Vang isn't requesting policy changes, she is requesting information regarding the state of rental housing as a first step. Second, the donation policy. I think this policy is too broadly written. It does not address the very real concerns so many people had about anonymous downtown businesses donating to fund 2 police officers. I also think providing $500,000 discretionary authority to the city manager for designated donations is too high, especially since the policy is so broadly written. I do not think the city should accept designated donations from anonymous people to fund operating costs. Such donations are one-time and operations are ongoing. Capital outlay, yes. Staffing, no. Also, there is no reporting requirement. I think there should be, especially in this polarized political environment. A comparison to donation policies from other cities would also be helpful. This policy needs more work and should be sent back to staff to be fleshed out some more. Finally, I appreciate the city manager's recommendation for $200,000 in social service funding to be directly allocated to several nonprofits. This gets funding into the hands of those supporting our community in the most expeditious manner possible. However, I am disappointed with the characterization of the Budget Committee's recommendation, which was not accurately stated. The Budget Committee recommended a $400,000 allocation, which was missing from the staff report. And in my experience, this staff report should also include the final vote, so that the public is aware of the overwhelming support this motion had at Budget Committee. Staff reports should be factual, thorough, and transparent, and the city attorney's report doesn't achieve that. I think the city manager needs better executive support and strongly urge her to fund replacing her vacant staff position in the next fiscal year. Please allocate $400,000 as recommended by the Budget Committee and allow the money to be expended in a longer period of time. The need is great, and the need is now. You have contingency funds, and we certainly aren't going to get another commercial airline at the Salem airport anytime soon. That was from Kathleen Treppa. I didn't get my comments in tonight.
Alan Roche and Gina Dads, please state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Good evening, councilors and mayor. My name is Alan Roche. I'm in Ward 4. Several topics and a lot of heat and emotions in the room. First, I want to say there's a lot of compassion for what's going on right now. A lot of blame being put all over the place, but the bottom line is families are hurting. This is a true fact. I don't care what your position is on ICE or not. It is a true fact. Families are hurting. However, with that same thing, there's a group of people in here tonight that have a lot of emotion, and they're demanding from our city government, certain things, but yet when we pledge allegiance to that flag, they turn their back to it. They reject the country that they're demanding money from. If you keep interrupting me, I'm going to reclaim my time and I'll be up here all night. Needless to say, You know, the relief fund that you guys are doing, it is a good idea to help families in need. I totally support that completely. However, where does it end? As you heard tonight from everybody that's come up here, they all said the same thing. This is a minimum. This is what we really need. It's never going to end. It's never going to be satisfied. And then when you do start giving out the money, I promise you we're going to be in the same room. Why did my neighbor get X amount of money and I only got this? I was impacted greater than them. You know, my father got taken away from me for drinking or whatever. Nobody came to my rescue and bailed me out. So I just find it amazing that the same country that they want relief from, they don't want to support. You know, like I said, I have compassion for people. They're hurting. If we have the means to do so, yes, let's help them. On the note about rent control, come on, some of you guys got to go back to our history books. We've seen this. Just go back and look what the Soviet Union did when they did all the government housing and everything else, trying to control and give away free stuff. How well did that work anywhere in the world? Go around and look. It failed everywhere. Okay, we can't sit there and say that businesses that build homes for people to reside in can't make a profit. That's not the country we live in, and that's the whole point. If you're an entrepreneur, every single one of you have a job to make money to support your family. Why are we restricting them? Yes, some regulations so that it doesn't increase and get people out of there, but our rent is not the problem in Salem. Our cost of living is, and it has nothing to do with rent. It has to do with the highest income tax in the entire country. And we're running businesses out of this state like we have extra money coming in, and we don't. We have to evaluate where we're just going for low-hanging fruit here. That's not going to change anything. It'll fix it for the moment, but nothing long-term. The same thing we've been discussing now with the homeless. Short fixes, but no long-term solution. Yes, I am sorry that these things are happening to all of you in this room with ICE. I apologize deeply that you're being oppressed, but it doesn't give you the right.
Your time has expired. Gina Dodds and Roger Bell.
My name is Gina. I'm from Ward 6, and I'm in...
Gina, can you pause for just a moment, please? We want to hear you. Okay, please state your name and your ward or your address for the record.
Gina, Ward 6, and I'm in support of the full $400,000 going to my neighbors who feed me pozole when I am sick, to my neighbors who watched me as a kid. The community raised me, and I was not an easy kid to watch and keep safe. And a lot of people are, sure, we could do a comprehensive study and see how much monetary value our immigrant communities are bringing into our community. But a lot of us in this room know that we can't even come close. Even if we found a monetary value, we can't even come close to quantifying the value that our immigrant communities bring to us. But one thing we do know is that ICE is expensive. ICE is expensive for those who are worried about where our tax dollars are going. And what we do know for sure is that ICE is not bringing anything positive to anyone in this community. They are costing us more and more, not just our tax dollars, but they are causing so much damage to everyone, but especially to our communities who bring so much value. That's all I have.
Roger Bell and Christina Marquez.
You're going to get to use that gavel a lot. You folks are supposed to be the stewards of the city of Salem on behalf of the U.S. citizens who are Oregon residents and City of Salem residents. No one should have to remind you of this, but recent activities by some of the members of this council make it apparent that some members have forgotten that. This council is not a forum for activism or advocating for illegal aliens. If members of this council feel the need to put advocating for illegal aliens above your civic duties, then resign your position on your council and start a private activist group to advocate for a solution to the illegal alien problem that relies on private donations, not taxpayer money. This proposal is an attempt to legitimize diverting taxpayer money to support illegal aliens while vilifying federal law enforcement officers, and is a blatant display of a lack of respect for the aforementioned citizens of this city. I find it curious that the council members advocating these actions do not see fit to use the appropriate legal verbiage when referring to these individuals and have not been corrected by the city's legal counsel. The correct legal term is illegal aliens. They are not immigrants, illegal immigrants, undocumented residents, or any other feel-good moniker. As a grandson of a legal immigrant who became a U.S. citizen, I find those terms offensive. I would think that any U.S. citizen who came to this country originally via the legal immigration process, and all those folks who are currently in the process of immigrating to the U.S. to become U.S. citizens, would be equally offended. I know, they're obnoxious. Let's try honesty and transparency. People here in this country that do not have a legal right to be here, valid current federal documentation, are illegal aliens. As such, this council should never propose or provide assistance to illegal aliens. In closing, if the city has excess funds, how about some additional work on cleaning and maintaining the parks, or trimming the trees and removing above-ground power lines from under power lines, or sidewalk repair, or other myriad of things that would improve livability for the residents and encourage businesses to come here and thereby increase our tax base. Thanks. Did I give you that Roger Bell Ward 4? Thanks.
Christina Marquez and Chris Cummings.
Hi, my name is Cristina Marquez, and I live in Northeast Salem. I want to start by saying no one is illegal on stolen land. I grew up here in Salem, though my family has lived in the Americas, what is now known as the Americas, for thousands of years as indigenous people to this land. I'm here to ask you to allocate the $400,000 originally approved by the Budget Committee to support immigrant communities. I don't need to tell you that children are afraid. You've heard from some of those children today. I don't need to tell you that people are afraid to go to the store. I don't need to tell you that people are afraid to go to the doctor because on their way they might be stopped by ICE. You've seen enough stories. If you've seen what's happening in Minnesota, you know that what ICE is doing is cruel and violent. You've seen it here in Salem, racial profiling of U.S. citizens because of the color of their skin. You know it's not legal. I would also hope you know that legality does not equal morality. Slavery was legal. Segregation was legal. The killing of indigenous people, internment camps were all legal. So what are you doing to protect our immigrant communities and stand with immigrant communities who are critical to Salem? We need you to move from words to action. And you can start by allocating $400,000 to support services for immigrant communities. And there's no amount of money that will get rid of the trauma communities are currently experiencing. But this is a start. This is a way that you can support families by providing a bit of aid, especially in a context in which there is cuts to SNAP, cuts to all these critical programs, healthcare, that is going to fund billionaires and to fund ICE. And we need funds for housing assistance, access to healthcare, reducing food insecurity, and providing legal aid for families now. So I ask for you to please vote to allocate $400,000 to support immigrant communities today. Thank you.
Chris Cummings. and Lori Doherty.
Oh, they came to speak, not listen. See? Bye. You don't listen.
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we're going to resume public testimony. I'd just like to remind everyone of the decorum for this evening again. Let's treat each other with respect. Please, no outbursts. We want to get through this and give everyone their 3 minutes to speak. Next up, thank you for your patience, Chris Cummings. Please announce your name and your ward or your address for the record. And Lori Doherty comes next.
Thank you. Mayor Hoy and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak about renters protection. My name is Chris Cummings. I am a resident in Ward 8 and a residential landlord. I'm here because I'm deeply concerned about the direction the proposal is heading, specifically for the idea of moving towards rent control or additional local restrictions on rental housing. Let me be clear. I want people in Salem to have access to safe, affordable housing. That's good for families, workers, and our city. But I'm also living in the reality that what it takes to provide that housing. Right now in Oregon, if a tenant stops paying rent and takes advantage of the system, it can take many months, sometimes close to 9, to resolve it. During that time, the landlord is still paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, the maintenance, and repairs with no income coming in. That's not theoretical, it's happening today. On top of that, the cost of doing business keeps rising. Taxes, insurance, labor, materials, code requirements, and compliance costs. Turning over a unit can cost thousands of dollars. Vacancies cost months of lost rent. None of that is optional. None of that is cheap. One of the reasons that rents go up isn't greed. It's policy. It's the accumulation of the costs and the risks added by government decisions. When those costs go up, rents follow. They have to, or the math simply doesn't work. Now we're talking about further controls and restrictions. I want you to really think through the consequences. If it becomes nearly impossible to operate rental properties sustainably, owners will leave the market. Some will sell, some will convert units, some will stop investing in maintenance and upgrades. The end result is fewer rentals, not more. And when the supplies dry up, who gets hurt? The very people we're trying to help. Families who can't afford to buy a home will have fewer options. Competition for the remaining units will increase. Prices will go up anyway. And yes, this also increases the risk of homelessness, not reduce it. Housing is just not a social issue. It's an economic system. If you break the economics, you don't get compassion as an outcome. You get scarcity, deterioration, and fewer choices for renters. Oregon already has a strong tenant protection policy. Adding another layer at the city level doesn't create housing, it discourages it. If the goal is to help people who are struggling, then there are better tools. Targeted assistance, vouchers, or direct support that doesn't punish the very people providing the housing stock. Please do not move Salem down a path that feels good politically, but ends up shrinking our rental supply and hurting the very people we care about. I am helping those that cannot afford to buy a home. We need more housing, more investment, and more stability, not policies that make it nearly impossible to provide rental housing at all. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Lori Doherty and Phil Decker.
My name is Laura Doherty. I live in Ward 1, and I urge you to fund the social services project with $400,000. I was at the budget committee, and I heard the recommendation, and it was backed by facts about what is available in the budget, that there is a surplus, there's money available, and that is what you need to do. I also want to talk about, I hear people saying what's beyond our control, what we can't do, what we can't deal with. I understand there are jurisdictional issues. I understand there's your place in the world. But the fact is, we are living in a condition of the conditions beyond what you talk about beyond your control. This is a country that is under the jurisdiction of a man that is, and a government that is acting with cruelty, viciousness. Their fiscal policy is like taking things away from people and funding, billionaires. They're unleashing thugs upon the communities and calling in law enforcement. And people here are suffering. And you don't sit back, and this is tyranny. This is something that you have to look at and say, we don't take it. We don't take it. We resist. There are things, yes, there are things we can't do. There are things we can't make happen just by wishing them, just by wanting them. But we don't sit down and take it. We resist. And that is what we need you to do. We need to say your passion. You're caring. And that's what I don't hear. I hear what you can't do, what's this, what this. I don't hear the caring. I don't hear the passionate conviction that we need to take care of people because we are the only ones who will.
Phil Decker and Julie R., please be sure to announce your name, your ward, or your address. Hit that button there, Phil, if you would.
Right there. Good evening, City Council. My name is Phil Decker. I live at 4289 44th Court Northeast in Salem. I want to thank the City Council for listening to testimony at previous meetings about the need to fund social services for families impacted by deportation, confinement, and/or physical harm resulting from ICE and Border Patrol brutality. I urge the City Council to approve the $400,000 as a good start and find ways to sustain that fund into the future. I also encourage City Council to keep in touch with local organizations who have the pulse on the immigrant community, who know who is in urgent need. Organizations such as Latinos Unidos Siempre, Mano a Mano, Salem Kaiser Coalition for Equality, Salem for Refugees, and others. Maybe a community advisory committee could help inform decisions on the use of those funds. As an educator in the Salem-Kaiser School District for 30 years, I've served immigrant communities as a teacher of history and as an elementary school principal. Upon learning that so many of my students' families came from small towns in Mexico, especially from one town in Michoacan called Las Arquillas, I decided to visit their ancestral village. I learned that immigration from Las Arquillas to the Willamette Valley began in the Bracero program in the 1940s, more than 80 years ago. Immigrants from Las Arquillas and many, many other towns from all across Mexico have been contributing to our culture, to our economy, and to our tax base for 4 generations. I moved my family to Salem in 1996, just 30 years ago. Nobody questions my right to live here, to work here, to be here. Probably because I'm white. But descendants of the Braceros who have served this community with hard work, with ganas y fuerza, for many decades, many more decades than I, are often questioned, confronted, and now brutalized, documented or citizen. Let's show that the Salem community contributes to immigrant families over many generations, especially now in their time of need, while in the crosshairs of our current racist, cruel, and authoritarian regime. Lastly, I stand before you as a proud grandson of Bessarabian immigrants who fled racist pogroms to come to the United States through Ellis Island and right by the Statue of Liberty. Just a reminder, unless you are Kalapuya every single one of us in this room is an immigrant to this land. And lastly, no one is an illegal alien. No criminals from another planet. We are all humans that live together.
Thank you for your testimony. Julie R. and Belinda Ochoa.
My name is Julie, and I live in Ward 2. I'm here in support of allocating the original $400,000 that was approved by the Budget Committee towards assisting families impacted by ICE. This money isn't a charity. It's allocating the tax money that undocumented families have already paid into the system. They work hard, and these families have worked hard to keep our economy going. At my school, there were already a handful of families destroyed by ICE. These children are now with the total loss of the income or incomes that clothed, fed, and housed them. It is already commonly known that the majority of the population is a missed paycheck or two away from homelessness. These children at my school will be thrown into an even deeper level of poverty and probably homelessness themselves. The city has a responsibility to keep all children safe, physically and emotionally. It is a responsibility of each of you to vote in favor of the $400K to help these families. So we'll be seeing how you vote. I'm in the union of my district, and I know that you guys show up to schools for the photo ops and all that. So remember that your votes are public. Our union is huge. I'm not here representing the union, I'm here representing myself. But just know that when you go into there, you're looking into the eyes of children who have seen their families destroyed, who are going home to emptiness. And as an educator, I'm telling you, the children are suffering in our classrooms because of ICE. Thank you.
Tim Cowan and Aaron Donathorn. I apologize, Belinda. You're at the top of the page there. Your name is Belinda? Yes, thank you. My name is Belinda, and I am in Ward 5. My comments are my own and not reflective of my employer. Shame on you, Julie Hoy, for piercing and staring with your piercing stare at the person behind me who was interrupting derogatory racist terms. I literally felt the cuts of your stare. I wish you were that strong on the issues we're bringing to you today. Good evening, the rest of the councilors as well. I'm born and raised in the city of Salem, and I feel shame of the disrespect to make a decision that each one of y'all are lacking to barely be making those decisions today for some of the hardest workers in this city. Please remember them, and remember they are part of, you are mayor to the whole city, including them. My parents worked 4 a.m. to midnight, and they rarely rested like many other families, and you have their tax dollars. There are so many decision makers already taking responsibility against the terrorism of ICE, and instead we're here begging you to look outside of your comfort zone. I feel we're inhumanely valued, and when we're also Salem citizens who your decisions affect. Thank you to community members who are doing more for our community than those responsible. When police didn't respond to community volunteers who responded to the person recently detained and recognized she needed medical attention and drove her to the hospital, community did that. And then they found out that this member had PTSD. That's why they couldn't even respond to being boxed. And you know they don't give you time. They're ready to smash windows. And remind you, all these hard workers, we shop here. We dine here. We work, we pay taxes, and some don't get returns. And you have all this money who are already funding. We've been funding everything else you've all already passed. We need to be seen this time. Mixed status families also volunteer through our churches, through community orgs, group counseling for mental health, and various avenues to help the homeless. I see all the groups collect clothes and go themselves to help out. All the neurodiverse, and we donate money, we donate food, we donate as much as we can through our churches.
You recommend me to call FBI and DHS, who are afraid of their boss, the president, who is the one who unleashed all this. How am I really going to call them for help? Please pass the minimum 4,000.
Tim Cowan and Aaron Donathorn. Yep, right in front of you there.
Mayor, City Council, for the record, my name is Tim Cowan. I believe I'm in Vanessa Nordyke's ward. What I wanted to do is I spent today pretty much at the Capitol. I'm the chairman of the American Legion Legislative Commission. And when I looked at what was on the agenda, a couple of things came to mind. When I'm over at the state, are there other areas that we can come up with money to help support the projects that you want to do, such as this one? So what I can do is, when I'm at the state, look for areas where there might be chances for funding, and any way you can help me, I would appreciate that. Some of the questions I might run into when I talk to legislators about it is the money will be used for housing assistance, access to health care, food insecurity, and legal aid. Are there other parts of our community that need the same things? And are there other parts of the community that are getting this that can be shared? Or is this unique? Because I work with the veterans, and we run into issues with veterans with the same thing, and primarily homeless, because they don't trust what the military is trying to get them to do if they want to get them out of homelessness and try to get them housing and so on. They don't trust that, and we have to fight through that. What I do have a question about is what's your measurable outcome that you want to use the money for? How do we determine whether it's been successful or a failure? Who will evaluate the programs to know whether they're being done effectively or if they need to be done in a different way? Who will have responsibilities to take a look at and review what the partners are doing, and if there's some things that we need to do to help with them? And I'll end with this, City Manager. I was very impressed with how you started the City Council meeting. I really thought that you covered that very well. And I felt a little bit more comfortable that we're putting some things in place that will improve the outcome than what we've had. So, Mayor, I'll be accountable to the City Council to see if I can come up with some funding at the state level. Okay?
Aaron Donathorn, and then we've got a couple of folks signed up online, starting with Ivy Clark Henry.
Hi, my name is Erin Donathorn. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I'm here today to speak on 5B and briefly on 5C. I ask you to support, as many in this room have tonight, to support the $400,000 authorized by the Budget Committee for the Emergency Relief Social Services Fund. I'm deeply concerned about ICE activity in Salem, and I continue to be disappointed in the city's response. Activists have been coming to council for months requesting this council's support. While the emergency declaration passed in December was something, the order lacked dedicated funding. Tonight, you have the opportunity to make substantive change and take substantive action. Funding the Social Services Fund is one way that we as a city can support our community. As you know, many migrant workers pay taxes but do not qualify for traditional public resources. ICE is targeting people of color in our community regardless of their legal status, and many are afraid to leave their homes. We've heard about that tonight. I want to live in a community where we support each other. This emergency fund is one way we can do that. The proposed $200,000 is not sufficient. We have great need in our community, as Luce and others tonight have spoken to. I understand the city has sufficient funds so can afford the $400,000 authorized by the Budget Committee, and I urge you all to support that tonight. I also want to briefly speak on item 5C. I'm a little concerned about this. I don't think there are any circumstances where the city should accept anonymous donations. If someone wants to donate money to the city, I think it should come to council so the public has an opportunity to hear who is giving it and why. So I urge you to reconsider that. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Ivy Clark Henry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good evening, City Councilors and Mayor. My name is Ivy Clark Henry. I live in and grew up in Ward 1. I am providing comment on agenda item 5B. I want to voice my support for the Social Services Emergency Relief Fund, and I'm requesting that it take the shape of the full $400,000 that was initially approved by the Budget Committee. This fund is vital to the support of Salem's residents in the midst of horrific kidnappings and terror from ICE agents that is ongoing. All of you have a responsibility to our neighbors, the people you serve. This fund in its entirety is one way of showing up for them. Cutting the original amount in half is not. Y'all spend a lot of energy talking about respectability and being law-abiding. I would love to see that energy be put towards supporting those who are trying to talk to you about the reality of their situation in communities that are in active danger. Lastly, you, the council, said that you did not receive a letter condemning the actions of immigration officers here. Julie, I'm so curious about whether or not you would have actually signed it. But regardless, that gives you and the council a great opportunity to create a letter of your own condemning ICE, advocating for its abolition, and submitting it with urgency. Thank you for your valuable and continued work. Latinos Unidos Siempre.
Thank you for your testimony. And now Talia Turner is online.
Hello.
We can hear you.
I promise I was
Go right ahead.
on a nice backdrop until I had to get in the car. But I'm not driving. I'm here in support of Luce and the full $400,000 that the Budget Committee approved. I forgot to say this last time I spoke, but I think that the phrase "put your money where your mouth is" really fits this situation well, because there have been a lot of expressions of support, but not very much substance behind it, and I think that that's really important. I had so much to say, and my daughter wanted to talk, but now she's in the back seat. I also think it's important to acknowledge that, like, a lot of the right-wingers here tonight wanted to talk about history, but the history of this nation is not bright. That's why people turn their backs on the flag, because the border did cross them. Treaties have been broken countless times, and yeah, it's kind of unsurprising, but very depressing to watch the city council drag their feet over something as measly as a $400,000 thing that's already been approved by the Budget Committee. As I drive by a new cop shop that probably costed 4 times that at least. I'm not rich, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's of the utmost importance, and basically in your job description, approve this. That's it.
All right, that concludes public testimony. We're moving on to the consent calendar. Councilor Nishioka?
Yes, I move
Oh,
for...
excuse me. I apologize. Your name was not on the list here, so hang on one moment and we'll get you all set, okay?
I believe this is the next person that signed up under public comment number 8, so she would not go at this time.
Okay.
I believe this is Addie Smith.
Are you Abby Smith?
I am Addie, but to me, Smith, and I mean, you let 2 hours of public ahead and get it out of the way. I'm the only one left.
I apologize, but you signed up under item 8, so we'll get to you a little bit later in the meeting, okay?
That's ridiculous.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Nishioka to the consent calendar.
Yes, thank you. I move for approval of the consent calendar.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. The consent calendar consists of the draft minutes from January 26, 3.2A resolutions, amendments to the stormwater, water and wastewater system development charge eligibility project lists. 3.3A action items request to create a mid-year project to perform a mechanical upgrade to the elevator at the Bush House. That completes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the consent calendar? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke. Aye. Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. We're moving on. We have no public hearings. We're moving on to special orders of business, and we'll start with item 5A. Oh, yes, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I will be declaring a potential conflict of interest because members of my family rent residential property in the city of Salem, so I will not be participating in the debate.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Nordyke. Moving on then, Councilor Vang, to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. So before we dive into the conversation about my motion, I just want to make it clear that the state controls the rate of which rent can be set at.
Councilor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you could just make your motion first, and you can speak to that.
Then I motion for the City Council to direct staff to research legal methods of renter protection and present options for council consideration. Do I have a second?
Second. We have a motion and a second by Gwynn. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. As I was saying, the state controls the rate at which rent can be set. This motion before council tonight is not about that. This is about what the council can do in regards to rental protection. It is a motion to direct city staff to gather information and data around other methods of keeping our renting families and residents in their homes and what other cities in Oregon have done so. The goal of my motion is so that this council can be data informed and transparent with our constituents when we create policies. This is just information gathering. We are not setting any sort of policy tonight. And this council and councils in the past have made policy and discussed and seen how the cost of living has dramatically increased and affects our Salem residents over the last 10 years. And since then, we've tried to be proactive in addressing this issue head on by fast-tracking building affordable housing with our developer community and to increase our housing supply. But that is only part one of the solution. Part two comes with how do we ensure that when we build these units and these homes, we actually keep our families in these homes. Residents who rent are also constituents of Salem, and the issues they face are very much real. And with rent increasing about 53% over the last 10 years, many families find themselves unable to afford their rent. It's common knowledge, and the public is aware that many families are one bad accident away from being unsheltered, and they are trying to make rent. How do I know this, though? Well, I've had constituents come to me since I've been sworn in June of 2025 about this very exact concerns. I've had seniors who live on fixed incomes worried about how they're going to make their rent. I've had families live in manufactured homes come to me about the concerns of their rising costs. I've had many residents come to me asking for help. And so this motion is to help inform this council, be data-driven, to address issues that our residents experience. And one of the most effective and equitable ways to provide housing and proactively address the housing crisis we have, and also address the homelessness issue that we continuously have conversations about, is to keep people and families in their current homes. And by exploring rental protections for all residents, including, but not limited to, our working class families, our seniors, our Latino community, our Micronesian community, our college students, and people with disabilities, and people with fixed incomes. This council and the city can be better equipped to bring about tangible solutions that is data-driven and grounded in reality and facts. And so that's why I bring this motion to my council members up here, so that we can have a discussion about this information gathering and what data we are going to be reviewing. And so I hope my fellow councilors join me in passing this motion so that we can actually have that data to create policy that is transparent. Thank you.
Any questions? Councilor Gwynn?
Well, I don't have questions, but I would like to propose a substitute motion. Councilor Vang, I appreciate your bringing this forward, but I'd like to propose a substitute motion. So I move that the City Council direct staff to research legally permissible methods of renter protection and present options for council consideration. The report shall include a legal review confirming that any options presented are clearly authorized under Oregon law and do not conflict with or attempt to circumvent state statutes, that they shall include a summary of the state of renting in Salem, including renter cost burden, as well as relevant state statutory context, include comparative case studies of Oregon cities that have adopted renter protection ordinances, evaluating both intended outcomes and unintended outcomes, evaluate the potential impacts of any renter protection options on housing supply, housing production, development feasibility, and private investment, including available data on permitting activity, housing starts, and completions in comparable jurisdictions. And also identify and analyze non-regulatory and supply-side strategies that may improve housing stability and affordability, including approaches that support increased housing production and preservation. And it shall also present options in balanced format that allows council to consider renter protections alongside potential economic, fiscal, and housing market impacts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Matthews. Councilor, anything to your motion?
Thank you. I want to take a few minutes to explain what I believe this report should cover and why it matters for the bigger picture of housing affordability here in Salem. At the heart of this is a simple goal: making sure people who live and work in Salem can actually afford to stay here. Housing affordability isn't just about rent, it's about the entire system: what gets built, how fast, at what price, and whether people have stable places to live. So the report should help us understand the full landscape before we make decisions. First, a legal review. This is just making sure that anything we talk about, whether it's renter protection, policies from other cities, or new ideas, is actually allowed under Oregon law. Housing laws in Oregon are pretty specific, and we don't want to spend time on options the state simply will not permit. Second, a clear picture of what renting looks like in Salem right now. That means how many renters are struggling with high housing costs, how fast are rents rising, and what state rules already shape what cities can do. This helps us ground the conversation in real local data, not just assumptions. Third, we should look at examples from other Oregon cities that have adopted renter protection ordinances, not just what they intended to do, but also what actually happened, the good and the not so good. It's a chance to learn lessons from places navigating the same statewide laws we are. Fourth, the report will dig into how different options might affect housing supply and development. And this part is really important for affordability. We all know Salem needs more housing of all types, rentals, starter homes, middle housing, you name it. So we've asked for information on how policies might influence building permits, housing starts, completions, and investment. Because if something makes it harder to build new housing, that drives up prices even further. Fifth, we're asking the report to look beyond regulations and explore non-regulatory and supply-side strategies. Things like encouraging more housing production, supporting preservation of homes we already have, or removing barriers that slow down building. These strategies can make a huge difference in long-term affordability and stability. Finally, we want everything presented in a balanced way, not just what a policy might fix, but also what ripple effects it could have. Not just what helps renters, but how it affects the overall housing market and affordability over time. The goal here isn't to push one direction, it's to give council a clear, fair, and complete picture so we make thoughtful decisions. At the end of the day, this is all about affordability and stability. Salem is growing, and we want to make sure it grows in a way that keeps our community accessible to the people who live here now. Young families, seniors, service workers, everyone. This report is one step toward understanding the tools available to us, what's working in other places, and what will actually help Salem stay affordable in the long run.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything further from anyone? Councilor Vang.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor, I want to make sure I understand your substitute motion. So you are proposing that the motion look at legal methods of rental protection that don't conflict with state statute. That's part one of your substitute motion. And then your other part of, I see you nodding, so I'm going to say that's an affirmative. Okay. And then the other part of your motion is to have information about what the rental conditions are in Salem. Is that right? Or part of your substitute motion?
Well, and Councilor Vang, I don't think that my motion is all that different from yours. It just clarifies what that report should include. So I think the heart of my substitute motion is what you said. It just clarifies more.
That's what I'm trying to get at. So I don't necessarily, I would think that maybe a friendly amendment to the motion makes a lot more sense than a full substitute motion, because when I'm looking at my motion, I already specify for city staff to research legal methods of rental protection. So that encompasses what your substitute motion provides as legal methods. And my motion also acknowledges that Oregon has several statutes that would take precedent over any city ordinance or city policy that we propose. So that also addresses your substitute motion of ensuring that any policy we set forward don't conflict with state statute. And my motion also includes or directs staff to look at the housing or the rental conditions in Salem, so we have a bigger picture. So I would think that a amendment to the motion rather than a full substitute makes a whole lot more sense. But that's how I view your substitute motion.
Councilor Vang, the substitute motion was my idea. She had asked me whether this should be an amendment to your motion or a substitute. Merely for the purposes of expediency, I suggested a substitute motion. I think Councilor Nguyen's motion and yours do overlap. I think hers is broader in scope and requires significantly more research by staff. It could be done either way by doing a substitute. There's only one vote needed. If this vote is successful, then the requirements of your motion are incorporated into the substitute. If it's not successful, then we would go back to your motion.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Varney. I'm supportive of the concept, and thank you, Councilor Nguyen, for the motion. My concern is whether we even have the resources to investigate and research in that depth. I'm not really sure what we're looking for here, and I am concerned about staff time it would take to meet what's in the substitute motion, since it is more substantial in terms of time. Do we have any estimates, anything?
I can't give you an estimate, but Councilor Nguyen's motion does include more scope and would require additional research than Councilor Vang's motion. As far as staff resources, yes, it'll take time. The more research we do, will take more time, so it'll take longer for staff to get back to council on this issue. I can't tell you. It'll be a matter of months.
Okay, thank you for the information. Then I'm wondering if we could, it would help if I had a better idea of what Councilor Vang's motion specifically included versus the other one, because I think they're both a good idea, but I also want to save us the resources, and how can we still get what we're looking for?
What I suggest, and City Attorney, maybe you can kind of help us out here, but what I suggest is for staff to kind of look into how much time does it take to do on both sides from the research perspective. I think it's hard to say today how much of staff time is needed. We can definitely come back with more information. Dan, how does that work?
To answer Councilor Varney's question, in the motions in your packet, basically it says that staff shall research legal methods of renter protection and present options for council consideration. The first sentence of discussion states, city staff should also include a summary of the state of renting in Salem, focusing on main challenges and efforts to address those challenges, including a percentage of renters who are rent burdened or extremely rent burdened. Obviously, the substitute motion is more specifics than that. So again, we can come back and give you an estimate. Regardless, it's going to take a significant amount of time to respond to either motion.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea. I think we need to decide what we want to do, because essentially one of the most effective and equitable ways to provide housing is to keep people in existing housing. When I look at renter protection, I mean, looking at the rents and the other things that are in this motion are a piece of that puzzle. I'm very interested in looking outside the box and maybe looking at other policies, but this is outside of the motion, actually. I want to know what other policy options there are to keep people in their homes. One of my big interests is what actions do landlords currently take to help renters stay in their homes. I don't know if there are policies there to make utilities more affordable, if houses have weather stripping, if they have energy efficient appliances, if they have solar panels. I mean, you know, this is a much bigger picture when it comes to affordability and keeping people in their homes. And I realize this isn't part of the motion, but I'm just saying that there are other things we could be looking at too. It's more of a comment.
Councilor Matthews.
So my biggest thought on the rental market as a whole is it's supply and demand, right? The more supply you have, if the demand's not reaching it, the price is lower. That's just general economics for just about anything, and the rental market's no different. And so my biggest concern, and I really don't care how this happens procedurally, whether this is an amendment, whether this is a substitution, for me, as far as having staff go back and research how much time it's going to take to validate what one motion is going to take versus the other, isn't that helpful for me? Because for me, if we only look at one side of that equation, which is just the renter protection side, I don't think it gives a whole picture. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to go look at a painting, but right before I go in the room to look at it, I'm going to turn the light off. So maybe I can see the outline, maybe I can see some of it, but I can't see the whole picture. And so I think in order to really know, like, how do you make impact in any area, you need to know the supply side and the demand side. And so I think that my only concern with how the original motion was written, and again, whether it's done through an amendment or anything else, is that I think it really looked at the demand side, but it didn't necessarily look at any of the supply side part. And so, again, how that happens procedurally, it's irrelevant to me, but it is impactful for me that it's not worth to me, the data won't be valuable to me if we're only looking at half of the picture. We have to have both sides of that picture for it to be valuable to me at all. And so, so that's my piece.
Councilor Tigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm probably more likely to support the original motion. I appreciate the detail of your substitute motion, but like others, I'm really concerned about the amount of time. And I mean, it reads like a scope of work for a consultant, you know, to like do this big report. And I do think we've spent a lot of time looking at the supply side in our housing production strategy and things like that. So we have spent time as a council and have been tasked to do that by the state. So I think we do have some countervailing data. I think maybe not everyone keeping score at home knows that a member of city council can't ask the staff to do something if it's going to take them more than an hour to do it. And so if the heart of the original motion is, I'd like the staff to look into this, but it's going to take more than an hour, that is something I'm willing to support for these questions. But the idea of turning it into a multi-chapter report feels a little bit much right now, and I think is going to be a theme for the remainder of the evening. I'm not sure out of the pot of money that we have for things like that there's money in that pot to pay for this kind of report, of the substitute motion.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilor Matthews.
I would say from a production standpoint, you're right. We do have some data on that piece. I think one part we don't have data on, and particularly in the rental arena, which is kind of what we're talking about, is the landlord perspective of that. And so when you look at any ranking, Oregon is ranked as one of the most renter-friendly states and one of the least landlord-friendly states. That's just statistically accurate. And so knowing that, as we kind of dive further into this conversation, it's all about the rental protection side, renter protection side, there's an out-migration of landlords as a whole. And so this doesn't talk about the production of rental housing. It's just talking about why are landlords giving up their rental housing and moving them to more convenient states for them. There has to be some sort of balance. And so again, I don't think we have data on that particular part. And so I don't think that an entire scope of housing production needs to be redone, but I do think a scope of a landlord's out-migration is probably valuable to the whole conversation of why is a landlord feeling like they should move out or move their rental elsewhere, as opposed to just how do we increase the rental production or rental protection, which may have an adverse effect on the landlord outmigration. So that'd be my only concern. So, yeah.
So when, assuming, just for sake of argument, if Councilor Vang's motion passes, staff isn't narrowly limited to what the council direction was. We can broaden the scope and bring things back. My concern is not the right word, but the reason I wanted Councilor Gwynn to bring her motion as a substitute is because it is so broad and does require so much more research than what I had anticipated in working with Councilor Vang on her motion. So, you know, if we want to take a look at the landlord's perspective and get ideas about other things, non-regulatory things we can do to address renter protection, that's certainly within the scope of what I was assuming staff would be doing in response to Councilor Vang's motion.
Anyone else? Councilor Vang.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilor Matthews, your concern about including the other aspect of rental protection, my motion does not limit city staff from looking into that portion of the equation or that discussion. And so I do think that the original motion that I brought forth does capture and allow city staff to bring council a whole picture of what the rental market and environment looks like, both from a renter's perspective and also allows landlords to be part of that conversation. And so back to my questions to Councilor Gwen, I was like, well, you know, I'm trying to understand the difference between like the substitute motion and my motion, and I believe both, especially the original motion, does allow council to have a full picture of the information, the data. So that's my response to kind of your concerns and to Councilor Gwen's substitute motion.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I want to first say thank you to both Councilor Vang and Gwen for bringing this item up and looking at potentially the different sides. I want our audience to realize that this council does think about how expensive it is to live in our city. And I know that I'm not alone sitting on this dais, that we're all worried about people falling into being unsheltered because of the cost of living. So this is one of those things that we do have some ability to see how we can help. So I want to speak to that directly because I think that it's important to recognize the good presentation that both Councilors Vang and Gwynn are doing. And you can see that all of us have thoughts on this. So again, thank you very much. I feel that I agree with Councilor Teigen in the sense that the scope of work might be too broad with the motion, the substitute motion, and it may be our best direction to go with the original motion first, and then if our staff find that it may require further, they can bring that back to us with the information that comes from the original motion. We have to also recognize that our staff is overworked and asking for another whole volume of research is going to prevent them from doing some of the other tasks that they are required to do. So I think this is a happy medium in the sense of finding a direction to get some information on what we might be able to do for rent protection. And if they decide that it would be worth going further, they can bring that to us.
Councilor Matthews.
So I'll just be really transparent. So for me, I guess I need to know before we make any vote. I don't know if this is a question for staff, a question for Councilor Vang, or a question for Councilor Gwynn, but does your motion or does the motion include what barriers property owners are experiencing that is leading to investments in other communities? Because if it doesn't include that for me, the data that comes back won't be valuable, and so I won't support spending any money on the data because it'll be completely not valuable to me. If that's part of the picture, then I think that gives the holistic scope, and that'd be a motion I can support on either side. So, so as long as it includes that, and again, I don't know if that's a question for staff, Councilor Vang, Councilor Gwynn, that is the piece I'm trying to get to, and so whichever one does that is the one I can support.
Thank you. So that is a very good question, Councilor. And the very first sentence of my motion, it states, a summary of the state of renting in Salem, focusing on main challenges and efforts to address those challenges. And so when we talk about rental protection, it not only includes the renter side, but also the landlord side. And nothing in my motion is geared more one way or the other. Like I said, the whole intent of my motion and the goal of my motion is to bring information and data to council, as much of it as possible. I, like you, want to be operating on all of the facts and all of the information. And so the original motion allows staff to be able to do that research on both sides and come back to council. So that's to address your question. But City Attorney, if you wanted to chime in, please do.
Councilor Matthews, I'm going to tell you what I think I heard you say, and you can correct me. So you wanted the report back to analyze challenges to property investment in Oregon or Salem and why folks might not invest in Oregon?
So what I had written down here was include what barriers property owners are experiencing that is leading to investments in other communities. You can rewrite that however you feel is friendly for the staff, but and my point is again, it's just to get that whole picture. And Councilor Vang, I hear you. I think, and I guess your motion is broad enough that it allows them to go where they need to, I suppose, with this. I will say on the other side, I don't want to leave them in the lurch either to not know what some expectations are. And so my expectation of coming back, and call it direction, call it whatever you want, my direction from me would be that, the only way it's valuable for me personally is to have that data.
From staff's perspective, we can address that issue with either motion.
Would it be better for me to make a motion or to ask for a friendly amendment to a motion?
Or table it altogether until we get more information.
Friendly amendments aren't really a thing, so no. But as I said, if one of the motions passes, we'll include that in the analysis.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to vote on the substitute motion first?
Yes.
Okay. If there's nothing further, will the recorder please call the roll on the substitute motion?
Councilor Tigan.
No.
Councilor Nishioka.
Nay.
Councilor Matthews.
Nay.
Councilor Gwen.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Nay.
Councilor Vang.
Nay.
Councilor Nordyke is recused herself. Councilor Varney.
Nay.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Nay. Motion fails. We're moving on to the original motion. Is there anything further on that? Okay. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwen.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke recused herself. Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We are moving on to item 5B. Is Councilor Nordyke? Oh, okay. All right.
That's been 10 hours researching the state of renting.
Okay, we're moving on to item 5B. City Manager Numbery, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your testimony on this item tonight and for expressing your thoughts and concerns. I feel like this community, especially those of you who are in this room, who have taken so much time to come to every meeting and speak about it, I think you deserve to know the reasoning behind my recommendation. So I have lots of notes, and my challenge right now is to see if I can read it. But I'll try my best to explain. So the proposal recommends creating a one-time $200,000 social service pilot program. This is to respond to urgent needs facing Salem families, including housing assistance, access to health care, food insecurity, and legal aid. The pilot will be funded entirely with one-time general fund salary savings and will be established before June 30th, 2026. So the money, I think one of the clauses that we have is the money has to be spent before June 30th, 2026. Now, funds will be distributed directly to existing community partners who already have the capacity to deliver these services quickly and efficiently. And this was one of the, as we were looking at a different option, one of the main criteria that the staff looked into is to be able to quickly distribute this money to families in need. Staff have already reached out to 4 organizations to confirm that they can meet the urgency of the need while also ensuring accountability. Now, each agency has agreed that they can meet the timeline for dispersing these funds. So the pilot approach allows the city to respond right now to community needs without creating new long-term financial commitments. And I'll speak about that in a minute. I agree with the Budget Committee and with this council and the community that the need in our community and what people are going through is real, and we need to help our vulnerable community members. Where I struggle is holding both things at the same time. One hand, caring for people who need help right now. And the other side of the equation is we also have to make sure the city can continue to deliver the basic services our community relies on every day. I understand there have been a lot of questions about why this proposal is $200,000 rather than $400,000 the Budget Committee has recommended. When the Budget Committee recommended $400,000, they did not provide a direction on where the money is going to come from. They did not provide a direction on the funding source. Now, after dealing with the budget crisis last year and one of several Budget Committee meetings, the Budget Committee, this council, and myself, we talked about not to be in the same situation again. What we went through from February through May, that was not easy on anybody, including the community and the city and the staff. Now, this council, the Budget Committee, and all of us, have been operating under this one philosophy, which is no new services without a sustainable fund source. The Budget Committee also has given us direction last year with the same philosophy to our capital projects. Now, staff worked to identify a source that would not create a deficit in the general fund. So that was a challenge, and it took us some time to figure out how can we come up with some dollar amount, and what is the maximum dollar amount that we can come up with without creating any deficit in the general fund. Now, that allowed us to identify $200,000 for the pilot. That, which is, like I said, which is the maximum amount we can responsibly commit at this time. Now, and also, the one thing that I want to highlight is our usual process is to allocate money for the entire fiscal year, right? For 12 months, you allocate a certain fund, and that's usually done through the budget process. And I understand the urgency of the need right now, and we need to do a mid-year proposal. So the $200,000 you're looking at is allocated for the next 5 months, which is like February through June 30th, because this money is going to be allocated for this 5 months, for distributing this money for 5 months. So that's another piece another thing that I do want to at least mention. Now, there have been questions about using airport MRG funds. And what I would like to remind the community, and I'm assuming this council agrees with me on this, is staff need to follow the council's prior direction and how those funds are distributed. And that direction is for a 3-year MRG minimum revenue guarantee contribution of $100,000 each year. That was the council direction. It's not the city manager's role to change the direction. Any updates to that direction would need explicit guidance from this council. So the second one, there was some conversations tonight about the contingency fund, and I did read the testimony coming from the community members about, I think one suggestion or the comment was, can the city use the contingency fund to pay for the additional $200,000? The way contingency fund works, it's not additional money that is sitting anywhere. This is part of the fund balance. So using $200,000 out of the contingency is going to put further deficit in the forecast. What I would like to remind the community, and that we're still working on January 14th, when we talked about the 5-year forecast, we have $1.2 million deficit in the fiscal year 27-28. So we are still working on how to take that red into green. 27-28 is coming pretty soon. And so we are already using the salary savings, making the contingency more critical so that we can meet the budget expectations. And the goal is to avoid layoffs in 27-28 fiscal year. So as your city manager, my responsibility isn't just to balance the budget for 1 year. It's to make sure the city is financially stable 5 years from now and beyond. Some of the difficult decisions we are facing in this budget, which is the forecast that you have seen for the 5 years, and this is even after the levy passing. The difficult decisions we are facing in this budget today are the results of, when we focus on a single budget cycle, rather than looking at what is long-term sustainability. And I also kind of want to repeat this. The budget committee has been very particular about keeping, and this council has also talked about, not to add any new services without a sustainable fund sources. That was my recommendation, but I think that was the philosophy we were operating under. So a one-time $200,000 pilot program for 5 months from now, February through June 30th, funded through one-time salary savings allows us to respond to the urgent community need that we have right now while not making commitments the city cannot sustain over time. This recommendation is not a statement about how much the need is worth. It's a statement about what the city can responsibly commit to without creating further deficit in the forecast. Because any kind of a deficit in the forecast, if we don't manage the budget now, there are consequences for the services we have to provide to this community. So my job is to, the way I look at my job is to protect both. One, the people who need help today, and the second one is the city's ability to serve this community tomorrow. So the proposal that you have in front of you is my best efforts to do both. It wasn't. It was probably after the whole levy process and the budget deficit, and I thought we're stable and doing well, and I thought I would never be in a situation where you're making those decisions. This was one of the hardest decisions for me. And I'm glad we were able to make that $200,000 happen. Like I said, we as a team, I think we did the best we can to bring this proposal forward. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have for me tonight.
Any questions? You want to make the motion? Yeah. Okay.
That's what I move to authorize the creation of a social service pilot program and approve resolution number 2026-5, transferring $200,000 within the general fund to fund the pilot program.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Tigan. Councilor, anything to your motion?
Yes, thank you for the time. Thank you, City Manager Nambury. I think that was excellently presented, giving information about the process that you and the team went through in finding the $200,000. Honestly, after the January 14th budget meeting, I went back and I was looking at the budget book and I was trying to figure out potential opportunities. And the only amount that I could come up with was about $100,000 with effort. And I was really pleasantly surprised when our city manager presented the $200,000. I really do want people to know that we are already facing a financial crisis yet again, and yet we do want to help our community, all community members. And so, again, as Manager Nambury said, this is for these next 5 or 6 months, and it is a beginning, and she wants the money to be dispersed rapidly so it can get to those in need rapidly. I will definitely be voting in favor of this motion, and I look forward to those being able to receive some funds.
Anyone else? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, City Manager Nambury. What about our community development block grant funds? I know that historically we've been able to use CDBG funds towards the social services fund when that was still a thing many years ago. Have we expended all of our CDBG funding within this fiscal year? If not, is there $200,000 we could pull from the CDBG to supplement the $200,000 in your proposal tonight?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. I'll have Director Rutherford come and explain it. So we did like 3 hours brainstorming session. So we had talked about several funds. So I would like for Kristen Rutherford to talk about it.
Good evening, Kristen Rutherford, Community Planning and Development Director. Those funds are not available. They've already been granted out. We've, completed that process quite some time ago, and we have been waiting to get signed federal grants back from the federal government. They've been very delayed this year, and we have nonprofits that are eagerly waiting for those funds.
Thank you. Councilor Brown, see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Madam City Manager, thank you so much just for sharing with us, the guidelines and the expectations for this potential fund. I guess my question is, if this is going to be a one-time fund, and I want people in the audience to hear me clearly, that this will go quick. It will not last. It will not be enough. So with this being a one-time fund, do we have any suggestions or ideas of how we can make helping our community, especially the communities who are in need, how can we make that a priority to where it's not just a one-time fund?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. As we are proposing the budget, I think many of you might have heard me say this. For me, it's always one step at a time. I'm preparing the budget for next year, for fiscal year 27, which is going to happen March through April. I promised the budget committee and this community that my proposal would have no red in fiscal year 27, 28. So I still have that $1.2 million deficit that we need to work on, right? But I also have to sit and have some conversations about what are our other options as far as creating a social service fund on an ongoing basis, and in what amount can the city do that or not. That's a process that I have to go through as I prepare the budget proposal with my team.
And just for follow-up, Madam Mayor, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Madam City Manager, I appreciate that. I do know that the Budget Committee, they gave us a recommendation. There was not a discussion about where the funds would come from. And according to what you just said in your team, is that we will still have a $1.2 million deficit, even after we've helped a lot of our communities in need. And so I want people to hear this really clearly, especially those families who have been impacted by ICE deportations, that on one side, we are ready to help and to support our families. And on the opposite side, we do realize that helping our families is going to create a wider deficit for the city of Salem. And so whereby I am supportive of this particular motion, I am supportive with my eyes wide open, knowing that in advance, we will not have enough funds to clear us out of this deficit, at least right now. And to my understanding, City Manager, there is also no support from the state, if I'm not mistaken. The state has not set aside funding for ICE deportations. Am I correct in that thinking?
That's correct. There isn't anything from the state.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Anyone else? Councilor Tigan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is in what can appear to be a land of plenty from government agencies. I just heard today that the city of Portland, our neighbors to the north, are just discovered $105 million in their housing budget. that they've been sitting on and not solving Portland's housing crisis. That's not the situation we live in here in Salem. And this has been a community conversation since I joined my first budget committee meeting in 2017. And we've undertaken a number of efforts to try and increase the number of resources coming into the city, some failing spectacularly, and others successful. If the one that had failed spectacularly, I think the vote was 82% against it, had succeeded, this year's budget would have had $28 million more in it than it did this year. But that was roundly rejected by our community as too much money for for the city to have. We were really successful in going back, thinking about what it meant to raise resources for the community when things are on the table, and pass the levy, because we valued our library, our parks, but it didn't leave us in a financially stronger position than we were a year ago, as the city manager said. We've saved those resources, but the actual, the fund balance, as the city manager mentioned, that would theoretically pay for this $200,000, we learned at our last budget committee meeting that it was zero. There was no money in it in the second quarter of the year. So we actually, when there was that gap, when we didn't have all of our property taxes in, we were out of money in that fund. Now, the city budget works in such a way that there's money in other places, but we can't, it's against the law to pick up those dollars and use them for something else. So your water's safe, the city's safe, but the general fund, the thing that the city council can make discretionary decisions like this in it, had no money in it. So the idea that $200,000 isn't enough, that $400,000 is just a start, we don't have that money. And as Dr. Brown said, we could try and spend it based on the property taxes that have come in since, but it's going to leave us $1.2 million short next year. And so my personal take on what was recommended to us is that the other thing is that the challenges coming to the city aren't getting easier. They're getting more difficult. We have a more divided community. And the number one thing that we can do as a community is communicate what the city's doing to our residents. And taking $100,000 for a position in the city manager's office that was dedicated to helping communicate what the city is doing feels very, it's a recommendation that I have a really hard time accepting, because your team has only shrunk since I came onto council, and the problems have only gotten bigger. And so that $100,000 I have a really hard time allocating, even for this very important purpose. The $100,000 for the airport, for the MRG, I think as you described it well, that isn't a $300,000 pot, it's $100,000 a year. And I feel like because it's part of the conversation, the reason I supported that when I did was because if we were successful in bringing another airline in, that $100,000 would secure many more dollars in federal funding for our airport, which also has to be maintained out of this exact same fund balance, which has next to nothing in it. So these are complicated issues, and I would personally like to continue this conversation about what of this $200,000 we think is we can actually spend on this purpose. I have a really hard time with the part where we decrease the capacity in our city manager's office.
So one of the hardest things over the past few months has been, honestly, to be on this dais. And as the community members are expressing their emotions and their concerns, and it hits you pretty hard. Like, I know each of us have our own desire to help and do something. And so when I looked at that $200,000 proposal, the MRG one was not a difficult one because it's February. By the time we even attract an aid lines, it's going to be July, and so I felt comfortable that it is $100,000 per year. You're right, that isn't $300,000. So for this year, we have $100,000. So that was, for me, it was a little bit easier choice. The $100,000 for the keeping one of the positions in the city manager's office vacant, and the leadership team, each of the leadership team members also wanted to help and contribute to, so there is a trade-off. And I don't think anybody in the leadership team even thought about it even a second to say, okay, let's do this. The moment we identified it, it was like that. So I'm glad we are able to do it, but I do want to kind of explain that to the community because it's a tough position to be in. There isn't any money sitting there where we can just kind of take it and allocate to this without creating the deficit in the coming years, right? So.
Councilor Brown, I see your hand.
Thank you. Madam City Manager, you may have already shared this with the audience, but I think there's value in probably resharing it. The proposed $200,000, and I just want to be sure that people at home and that are in this space will understand that that $200,000, it's not in one fund, and nor is it just going to one entity. It is broken up, $50K going to like Mano Mano, another $50K going to Mayor and Pope Food Share, another $50K going to legal services, and I'm not exactly sure where the other $50K is going. So, Madam City Manager, I think it'll be helpful that you or someone from your team share this with the community, because a community member could be thinking like, oh, there's $200,000 in one account, and we can apply for those funds to help our family in need. That's not the case. And so I just want to make sure that folks understand and they can see that there are multiple funds to where each one of the entities will get $50K. So if you could elaborate on that, Madam City Manager, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Councillor. So when staff, through the emergency declaration, this council has given direction to staff to engage the community to understand where the need is. And there is information report on that in tonight's agenda packet. So as the staff were learning about where the need is, there were 4 things that came as the need in the community. The first one is the housing insecurity, food insecurity, and need for medical help, and then also legal aid. So for the housing insecurity, SHA is selected for that, and for food insecurity, Marion Polk Food Share, and for medical health help, Mano Mano, and then for legal aid, Legal Aid Services of Oregon. So these are the 4, and the $50,000 is going to be given to each of the entities. So there is a total $200,000, which is going to be distributed equally among those 4 needs.
Madam Mayor, might I ask another question?
Go right ahead.
With those 4 entities, thank you, Madam City Manager, for explaining it. I'm going to throw an ask, and I'm not exactly sure if this is up for discussion now or for later. But a part of me, after hearing so much testimony, not only from tonight, but last year, and visiting so many of our constituents, especially in wards 5 and 6, when we think about the $50K going to Mano Mano, is there room where we could divide that $50K, $25K going to Mano Mano, and $25K going to Luce? Is that a possibility?
I think the council can have a discussion about that, and if that is what the council direction is, and we're more than happy to kind of take care of it, and I'm also confirm this with staff to make sure that's something that we can take direction on. Courtney, do you want to come and talk about it? Courtney Knox-Bush, the assistant city manager, has been the one to lead this effort in engaging the community, so I would like for her to say something on this.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, the Mano a Mano and Luz are connected, so if we are able to grant some funds to Mano a Mano, it would take care of a broader need base, so we wouldn't be restricting Mano a Mano or Luz to using the funds in any one of the 4 groups, but instead to support the community in any way they saw fit. Thank you.
Councilor Matthews.
I mean, I mentioned during the budget committee that, so there'll be no surprise for me to say this, but as everyone else here on the stage has already said, we are not in a financial position to restart the social services fund or really even to do this $200,000. But I think Councilor Brown's question actually hits to the point that I was most concerned about with this entire proposal, and that's I'm not sure that it's within our purview as a council to take taxpayer dollars and decide what cause that goes to, no matter if it's the four nonprofits that we've talked about today or that are proposed today, or if it's Liberty House or it's Salem Alliance or it's YMCA or it's any of the others. It's not our place to decide for voters where their dollars are going to go towards things that they can themselves actually support. We're an entity that's given the authority by voters to actually impose taxes and fees for the duties that they can't do themselves: police, fire, EMS, streets, utilities, etc. And so I've tried to think all week, honestly, for a compromise for myself of how can both things be accomplished to some fair middle ground way. And I can't get to a place where we use taxpayer dollars to directly fund any specific nonprofit or specific cause out of general fund. And I honestly don't think that from a financial standpoint we should. But the only compromise I could come to is, and I don't know how well this works from a digital standpoint, but is reducing the city operations fee by $200,000 in the month of March, equally divided amongst all payers, which allows each individual voter, each individual person that's paying a water bill, to decide for themselves what cause they're going to support with those dollars. I think that's the most fair and equitable way to ensure that every person gets the opportunity to contribute to the cause themselves without us doing it for them, which I think is outside of our personal purview.
Councilor Varney.
Thank you. Boy, I really appreciate this conversation, appreciate all the testimony tonight. And City Manager, thank you for working with the leadership team to put these funds together so we can look at this as an option. And the leadership team, thank you for your sacrifice and contribution, because I know it's going to be a lot harder on you to fill that gap for that many months. I really appreciate it. One thing I mean, yeah, the need is so much greater than the resources that we can even find, to think nothing of having available. I also wanted to say briefly, I appreciate on the item discussing what the grant agreements will include, the grant agreements for each of these. There will be a 10% cap on administrative costs. Sometimes those can tend to get out of hand, so I really appreciate that being in there to be fiscally responsible. And there's also a reporting requirement upon completion of the grant to ensure accountability. And so I want to thank you for including those in there, because it's really important that this is distributed, if it's approved, efficiently, and that it's accountable. Thank you.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to Councilor Matthews' comments. Councilor, it is within our purview. If you take a look at our budget book, you will see that annually We take federal pass-through funding through HUD, Housing and Urban Development Department, and CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funding. So there absolutely is a practice of this council directing funds to nonprofits such as the Marion Polk Food Share, Women at the Whale Grace House, all kinds of groups who are there to serve those in need. So it's not unusual, it's routine. I think moving forward, when we talk about the sustainability of this fund, I just want to reiterate that the Social Services Fund in the past used that pass-through federal CDBG money to give to qualifying nonprofits in the community. Pass-through, meaning not your city tax dollars, but the federal dollars that is given to the city of Salem, to the city. In fact, we're not the only city who gets it. Lots of cities get this money. Counties get this money. And that money is given to us with some strings attached. It's not free. We can't spend it on whatever we want, but we get to spend it on helping the most vulnerable among us. We get to spend it on housing, on food insecurity, on revitalizing neighborhoods, economic development, job creation, assistance to the homeless or those at risk of becoming homeless. In other words, exactly the groups that are identified and recommended by the city manager. So when I think of how we can look at the sustainability of this fund, I think we need to take a thoughtful look at how we apportion next year's federal pass-through funding. If this council's not willing to support $400,000 today, and if we pass $200,000 today, the good news is we will be back in budget committee meetings very soon to talk about how we spend our money starting July 1 for the next fiscal year, starting July 1 of 26 through June 30th of 2027. And we, the council, gets to decide how we use that federal money. Again, there are eligibility requirements, but we absolutely could consider using this to sustain our communities who are struggling the most right now. They are struggling mightily, and they do need to hear from us. So I think that if we take the $200,000 today and make it immediately available to these nonprofits, these four that the city has already vetted and identified to quickly distribute and help it reach the people who need it most, we can and we must come back and discuss at budget committee what is the future of helping Salem's most vulnerable residents look like? What is the future of helping those who are struggling the most? And how can the city be a part of that solution and leverage mostly pass-through money, not local taxpayer dollars, to make that happen? Thank you.
Councilor Matthews.
Maybe I just need to get clarity. Is the $200,000 that we're talking about federal pass-through money, or is this local taxpayer dollars? I guess that's a question for the city manager.
It is the taxpayers' dollars. It's from the general fund.
Okay, I just wanted clarity on that. Thank you.
Councilor Gwynn.
Okay. Sorry, you can probably see me struggling. I've thought about this all afternoon. I have 3 different things written because I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. I do want to say, Councilor Teigen, I so appreciate you are always so articulate in explaining where we've been and where we're going in terms of the budget. And I just want you to know how much I truly appreciate that. And so I hear somebody see somebody saying, come on, get on with it. So I will get on with it. You know, we all want vulnerable people to get the help they need. But this isn't about compassion. It's about whether the city is the right entity to deliver these services. Creating a new city-run social services fund is the wrong tool for the job. Social services are not a municipal function. They're designed, funded, and staffed at the county and state level. When the city creates its own fund, we're not filling a gap, we're duplicating systems and letting agencies responsible off the hook. That's neither efficient nor sustainable. Second, calling this a one-time pilot doesn't eliminate the risk. Pilots frequently turn into, and we know this, it's a soft launch, and once services begin, expectations solidify. Staff has already noted there is no identified ongoing funding source, which means a temporary pilot could quickly become a permanent commitment the city is not equipped to maintain. Third, every dollar carved out for the new fund is a dollar pulled from services only the city can provide. Police and fire response, emergency services, streets, parks, and critical infrastructure. Those core responsibilities are uniquely municipal. No other government level can backfill them if we reallocate resources. The city would be paying for outcomes it cannot control. We wouldn't run the programs, manage the providers, or have the authority to enforce accountability for results. That leaves taxpayers funding work the city has no ability to steer or evaluate. A recipe for escalating costs with no measurable return. Finally, establishing a city-funded social services program sends a clear signal to other levels of government. You don't have to step up. Salem will take it from here. Once that cost shift lands on local taxpayers, it rarely shifts back. So the issue isn't compassion, it's structure, accountability, and long-term fiscal responsibility. A new city fund may sound helpful, but in practice, it risks becoming a soft launch permanent program, undermines core municipal services, duplicates existing systems, and removes pressure from the agencies actually responsible for delivering outcomes.
All right. Anyone else? Councilor Nordyke.
Sure. I would just point out that pursuant to the city's report, there would be a reporting requirement for completion of the grant. There would be limitations on how funds are spent. There would be a 10% cap on administrative costs, a deadline to expend the funds. So there has, in fact, been a vetting of this process, and it would not be with no strings attached. And again, I would just reiterate, when we're looking at what the future of this fund might look, the future of this fund, look to the history of this fund. And the history of this fund used federal pass-through dollars, and that's what I'm recommending for future investments.
Councilor Gwynn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just hope that we take Mr. Cowan's take him up on his offer to go to the legislature to try to get help from the state too.
If I may ask a question of the city manager, are the nonprofits that have been selected for this, are they privy to this expectation that there are expectations and limitations, such as 10% to administrative costs or something like that? Are they aware of that?
Yeah, they are. Courtney was the one who communicated with them, and yes.
Thank you. Councilor Vang.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Gwen, I think you bring up a really good point that this is an opportunity for our county commissioners and Marion County to step in and also provide these services, because we have our residents coming to us. They're also residents of Marion County. And so if there is, there is a need here, clearly, and I urge our county commissioners to come to the city and engage in the conversation of how do the county support the city to meet the demands that our residents have been coming to us for months. And I think you bring up a really good point that we should collaborate with our county commissioners. So I didn't even think about that. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I'm going to follow what Councilor Vang just said. And we've said it before, that A, the state really needs to be at the table. The state really needs to provide financial assistance for all the families in Oregon who have been impacted by ICE deportations. I will not change my mind on that. I firmly believe that Madam Governor needs to be a part of that decision. And right behind that, the second one is, it is the county. And the reason I'm saying the county needs to be at the table, because 2 weeks ago, we had a conversation, or we were starting to have a conversation about vendors off of Lancaster and Cordon Road. A lot of that territory over there is county. So on one hand, we want the county here, but then on the other hand, we want the county to be scot-free. So I put the county in the same category as the state, meaning that both of those entities have a responsibility to not only show up to the table, but they should show up with their purse strings ready to help all of these families who are in need. And I will not change my mindset on that, because I firmly believe it. That if we're going to make any kind of lasting change, and I'll be one of the first people to say this situation that we're having with ICE deportations, it's not going to disappear. It's not going to go away tomorrow. It's not going to go away by June 30th. It'll still be here. So part of me says, along with Madam CSO being a part of the legislative committee, and in the middle of the short session, I firmly believe that someone needs to lobby on behalf of our city to the governor's office and to the county commissioners about how they can contribute and help the families that are being impacted by ICE deportations. I will not change my mind on that.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Anyone else? Councilor Tigan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate the conversation with the group, as always, and I think this is a really important thing to talk about, what the right decision is today, and then also what does it mean for the potential future of a social services fund. I, like the city manager, really feel like part of our legacy as councilors is somehow trying to make the right decision today, and then also trying to leave the city in the right place 5 years from now or 3 years from now when our term's up. So today's a difficult day for that choice, but even before we get to the budget committee, we have a work session, I believe, next month, talking about the operations fee. Oh, next month, it's February already. Talking about the operations fee and the other latent, I'll call them, needs that we know exist in our city. We need to staff another fire department or another station. We need to think about what a community policing model means. We want to maintain our REACH program, our homeless services team. So I am going to vote yes for this tonight against my 5-year instinct. But I think that the future considerations of how we play in these have to be weighed against that fire that's going to take place in Southeast Salem in 2034. That's the fire we have to put out, and it's our responsibility to do that through our budgeting today. So, yeah, end of comment.
Councilor Gwynn.
So I'm just going to say for the record, if we do this, then next week we're going to be talking about raising that operations fee, because we're going to have to, this money isn't going to fall from the sky. We don't have a money tree. So we are going to be raising taxes. So people need to know that. When you're asking us to provide these additional services, the money has to come from somewhere, right?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely. The money has to come from somewhere. We know that the city is growing faster than the city services can grow along with it. I wouldn't presuppose that the answer is the operations fee and changing that. We need to have that conversation. Like, I'm not making my view on that known tonight, or I don't know, do I have a view? But like, I think what we've learned going to through the last 5 years of these revenue conversations is that it needs to be a public conversation and the voters have to be involved in it.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Councilor Nordyke.
Sure. I just want to reiterate that the city manager found the money within the existing budget for this year. This is not a tax raise. This is not a tax hike. Let's avoid inflammatory language to frighten people and divide us. This is about keeping a position vacant and about using $100,000 in the airport fund that we were not going to use between now and June 30th. This is about using money that was planned to be used within the existing budget. It's not a tax hike.
I just want to acknowledge how far we've come in a year. The picture was a lot more bleak. A year ago, the 5-year forecast was we were way worse off. And things are getting better. We're taking a closer look at things with more regularity, even on a monthly basis. And it's super important. It's also a lot harder to play so close to the edge. And the situation is fluid because expenses change and revenue changes, and it's throughout the year. So I wanted to acknowledge the hard work and effort of this council and of staff to bring us, and the passage of the levy, the community, all of this has worked together to bring us to a better place. And it is, difficult to take on special projects. This is a very important time, kind of like the Marion Polk Food Share funds that we managed to find to help when the SNAP benefits were threatened so deeply. The city manager's leadership did what we had to do to find that and to be able to provide it. I don't want us to go backwards financially because we've worked so hard. And I know that's particularly hard on staff. And it's also frustrating for the taxpayers whose money we are dealing with. So I just wanted to express that. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right. Will the city recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Matthews.
Nay.
That was a nay.
Yes, nay.
Thank you. Councilor Gwen.
Nay.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Councilor.
We're coming back together and moving on to item 5C.
You saved me from myself.
So Council, this 5C is the city donation policy. I just have a few words and I'll turn it over to Councilor Nishioka to make a motion. But the draft policy essentially creates two types of donations, designated and undesignated. A designated donation means the donor is restricting the use in some manner. And undesignated basically means it's free money. So under the proposed policy, all donations to be accepted must be in the city's best interest. So that means, as set forth in the draft, the use of the money has to be consistent with an adopted city policy. Another factor is whether acceptance requires the city to expend funds and whether it creates an ongoing obligation or undue burden on the city, whether a city match is required, and does the donation appear to reward, influence, or impair the judgment of a city official, and does the donation appear to encourage special treatment? That's essentially how we would review the donation in terms of whether it's in the best interest of the city to accept it. So for designated donations, again, those are ones where the use is limited in some manner. Regardless of the amount, the donation has to be in the city's best interest before it's accepted. Donations over $500,000 must be accepted by City Council, while donations below $500,000 may be accepted by the city manager unless the acceptance would require some other action by council, such as adding a position to the budget, other budget actions, entering into an intergovernmental agreement with another public agency, something like that. Undesignated donations, and again, those are ones that do not restrict the use. The city could use it for any purpose. Under $500,000, the city could accept the donation. Over $500,000, it would need to be accepted by council. There's a couple other items in the draft. We talk about an affiliated nonprofit. Affiliated nonprofit basically is defined to mean, Friends of the Public Library, other Friends of Center 50 Plus, other groups like that who are set up for a specific purpose to support a particular city program. For those types of donations, they would be considered as undesignated donations. Typically, these friends groups will donate money for any specific, for any general purpose for that particular program. On other occasions, they might donate money for a specific thing. If it's for a specific thing, as opposed to just library purposes, it would be considered a designated donation and would follow the rules for that. We also talk about anonymous donations. A lot of times, I recall a donation from several years ago where a local property owner wanted to donate the property they owned in town for a dog park. They didn't want any credit for that. They didn't want a tax write-off for that. They just wanted to give us the property and say it's got to be used for a dog park. Those are the types of anonymous donations that we're talking about. Obviously, given recent history, there's other types of anonymous donations where there might be more of a concern in City Council. But generally speaking, we would try to honor the donor's request for anonymity. Sometimes we just get money. Sometimes people just give us money. We don't know who they are. Those are truly anonymous donations. Other times we may get contact from the donor, so we know who the person is, but they want to keep their identity private. With that, I'll turn it over to Councilor Nishioka for a motion.
Thank you, City Attorney. I move to adopt resolution number 2025-31, adopting a City Council policy on acceptance of donations.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Gwen. Councilor to the motion.
I'm actually going to move forward with a substitute motion. I move to a substitute motion to adopt the donation policy with the following changes. Reduce the $500,000 donation amount in each place it appears in the policy to $100,000. Require written documentation, require written donation agreements for all donations that include at least the following: confirm the city retains full and exclusive control over the deployment and use of the donated funds, including the assignment, supervision, and management of any staff funded by the donation, consistent with the intent of the donation. Establish that the city determines all reporting requirements to the donor related to the use of the funds, and require the donor to acknowledge and accept reasonable limitations on legal recourse related to the city's administration or use of the donation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Nordike. Anything further, Councilor?
I will just add that we had made the motion to, or we had asked staff to bring back to us some requirements on policies for donations, and I thank the city attorney and his staff who worked on this. Appreciate all of the work as he was explaining. I just felt that the amount was too high, and so I am moving with the substitute motion with 100,000. Anything more would need to come to City Council.
Councilor Brown, did you have something?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, I do not have a question about this particular motion. I have a procedural question, but I think I can ask it after this, and it's for the city attorney.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Vang?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Nishioka, can you repeat the last 2 points of your substitute motion? I was furiously typing and I didn't catch it all.
Sure. I'm sorry. There were actually 3 points. So number 2 is require written donation agreements for all donations that include at least the following: confirm that the city retains full and exclusive control over the deployment and use of the donated funds, including the assignment, supervision, and management of any staff funded for the donation, consistent with the intent of the donation. Establish that the city determines all reporting requirements to the donor related to the use of the funds, and to require the donor to acknowledge and accept reasonable limitations on legal recourse related to the city's administration or use of the donation.
Thank you.
Councilor Tigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Nishioka, about the first part about the city retaining exclusive, looking over your shoulder, control, full and exclusive control over the deployment of the donated funds. So how does that work with designated versus undesignated? So that's kind of my question. Like, can someone donate something as a designated donation for a specific purpose, but then would this clause overrule that? What is that? What's the effect?
Thank you for the question. The city attorney may need to respond to that. I think what I'm really trying to do is that the donor doesn't have control or over funds that they're just donating. Now, if there's an exclusive cause for that donation, again, it will follow the rules that Dan Atchison brought forward. So I'm trying to bring forward more, I guess, did you read Bill Dixon's
the
testimony?
Public comment?
Yeah.
Yes, but I can't access it in my mind at the moment.
I guess. Yeah, it was just basically trying to establish that we have a clear, I guess, agreement with the donor about the funds being used, whether it's just donating and not for a specific thing, or whether it is for a specific thing. Does that help? No.
Can I take a stab at that? Yeah. So as I understand Councilor Nishioka's substitute motion, donors could still offer donations for a specific purpose, you know, 2 officers within the city or an ice cream truck or whatever it might be. But within that, we would determine, you know, how we would roll that out, how we would use the money. And if it's outside of council policy, or if it's outside of our programming, or it requires the city to make a financial burden to support that, you know, that would end up coming to council. So council could decide if those strings are acceptable.
Thank you. That explanation is really helpful. I'll just say the hardest part to understand or imagine is having so much money that I'd want to give some of it to the city. Like, that's not something within me that I can access easily. But once I do that, and then I'm in the mindset of someone who wants to donate something to the city, and I like that as a city councilor, I appreciate that. I do think, sort of like the last conversation that we had, if the final decision-making authority is in the political body, the city council, that's the thing I'm comfortable with. We get elected to make decisions like that. And so if the dog park example comes to the city council and we decide, well, that's not part of the city's master plan, but yeah, it would be good to have a dog park in that square in the middle of the town, then the city council can say yes and accept the donation. And if that's the case with this amendment, I'm good with it.
I think that is the case under either scenario. Also, just practically speaking, you know, the city has accepted donations for quite a while now. And typically, the city manager, being an astute city manager, would take these issues to council for their consideration, or at least information. And if there's, you know, some concern about it with council, the city manager has typically said, okay, let's have that discussion. Typically, the city manager is just not going to act arbitrarily if council doesn't agree with that.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I'm wondering how this will work out in practice. Let's say we pass this substitute motion and a donation comes in at $100,000 or $101,000. Would this appear as an information report for council to pull, or would it appear as a special order of business? Because I know information reports, everyone in council knows how to pull one, and our mayor walks through them very carefully, and I always appreciate that. She always gives us time to consider each information report so we can raise our hand and say, stop, I want to talk about this. I'm just curious, in practice, how would this work for future donations if this motion were to pass?
Councilor, on your specific hypothetical, you said 101,000, so it's over 100,000 based on the substitute motion. If it's an undesignated, regardless of whether it's designated or undesignated, that would come to council for approval, not as an information report. To explain further, if it was under 100,000 under the substitute motion, the city manager could accept that. There's no express requirement that we list all accepted donations as information reports on the council agenda. Typically, we provide council notice through email or otherwise. As far as getting notice out to council, I think that's the important part. I would not recommend that we have an express requirement every time there's a donation. We provide an information report to council, because that just requires more staff time and opportunity for error on our part.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I didn't scroll down, so part of my explanation, I'd like to read that now too. This amendment strengthens, so my substitute motion strengthens an already solid donation policy by ensuring appropriate council oversight and legal safeguards for larger designated donations. I also reviewed what other cities were doing, and I found no other cities that had any policies about donations that they all had to go through city council for approval. So we would be the first city moving forward with this amount as being appropriate. So I thought that was interesting, that all other cities bring any donations forward to their council. And so that was part of my reasoning for lowering it. 500 again seemed fairly high. Bringing it to 1,000 still gives our city manager some authority on lower amounts, but that anything 100,000 and above would need to come through council. Those were some of the reasons why I made this substitute motion.
Councilor Varney. Thank you, and thank you for that explanation. I don't have an additional question.
Councilor Matthews.
So I think I understood this portion, or at least I think I got it down correctly. But I wanted to ask the city attorney. Well, first, I guess I'll ask you if I wrote this down correctly, which is require donor accepts limitations to legal recourse in relation to the donation. Is that kind of the gist of what you were saying there?
Yes.
So I guess for city attorney, I mean, it'd be my assumption that there's no legal recourse on a donation that you give to the city, but especially since it's within this donation policy, our funds to spend. But to help me to understand, like, what limitations or what ability would they have to actually sue the city?
Sure. You know, for a undesignated donation, you know, free money, there's very little recourse. For someone who conditions their donation to the city, we would typically have a donation agreement setting forth what the condition is, and so we understand what the use is, and so there's no ambiguity, or at least as little ambiguity as possible. And if the city, you know, did not perform, they could bring an action to seek the money, seek return of the money.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. City Attorney, let's use another, you used the hypothetical dog park donation. We do have some future parks designated, and some of these are, they were gifted to us, these lands were gifted to us, but some of the reasoning that they want to donate it but not yet, because family members are still living on the property, or someone else is still living on the property. And so I think we don't always realize that there's donations made that aren't necessarily cash. And so they alone can have a lot of legal potential recourse and things in the future. And we also have to look at them as far as what is our maintenance cost for the future and have to analyze those. And so some of the things that I'm trying to bring forward is to make sure we have some clear agreements so that we can be sure that we're making good choices.
Anyone else?
I didn't hear a question there, so I would say yes.
Good choices.
Thank you. I guess my question was, we accept land, and sometimes that's a long-term thing, and we still have to have a pretty clear guidelines on that. So that's the question. Is that true?
Yes, it is. As noted in the policy and the staff report, donations of real property are subject to a separate SRC chapter for real estate transactions. It does allow the city manager to accept donations of some types of property, usually a dedication of an easement on a plat for a subdivision, that kind of thing. You know, we're required to go through an environmental review. There's a lot of process to accept donation of property, real property.
Anyone else? Further discussion? I think we're ready. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. We are moving on to information reports. Item 6A.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, Councilor Brown, please go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I was trying to ask this question, not after this motion, but on the previous one, in regards to the Social Services Fund. So, Mr. City Attorney, in light of that particular motion, which has just passed, can the council now have a conversation about halting immigration enforcement actions in the city? Like, can we have an open discussion about that? Or do we need a motion to where collectively we as a council can have that conversation?
Sorry. Typically, council deliberations and discussions occur through someone making a motion, and you're welcome to make that motion, and we can, at council's discretion, we could have that discussion tonight, or you could make that motion and we could have it on the agenda at an upcoming council meeting.
Well, Mr. City Attorney, I appreciate that. And the reason I'm asking is because I didn't hear everything in the beginning when we logged on for the meeting, but I do know that there were quite a few constituents that were concerned in regards to a letter that we did not receive. And so a part of me is wondering, how can we collectively have that conversation, but also create a motion to where we could, as a team, sign that particular letter in solidarity with the other cities across Oregon.
So certainly a member of council can bring that motion. And procedurally, technically, it should be brought, before the council meeting, so it can be an item on the agenda, so council members know what's coming and be prepared for that discussion. Otherwise, you need a motion to suspend the rules to consider that type of motion tonight.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Anything further on that? Okay. And we are moving on to information reports. Item 6A, the final evaluation of the design-build alternative contracting method used for the Salem Public Works Operation Building. Item 6B, purchases approved administratively from December 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. Item 6C, the City of Salem Fiscal Year 2026 Quarter 2 Financial Report. Item 6D, update on city activities following Council's adoption of the December 1st, 2025 emergency declaration related to community impacts of federal immigration enforcement. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank the city staff for this very thorough report, and I encourage folks to read it online. I just wanted to highlight some of the things from this report. The emergency declaration has resulted in several tangible activities that have already taken place. First, on the Know Your Rights training, I want to thank the Human Rights Commission for preparing that Know Your Rights training. They worked with the Oregon Law Center on this Know Your Rights training and solicited questions from the community in advance of the taping. That training is being aired in Spanish and English, and it is available online. And in speaking with HRC, I know that the reason they chose to make it online was so that anyone could safely access it from an internet connection rather than having people congregate in one area where they could become a target simply by wanting to know what their rights are in the event that they are stopped by immigration officials and demanded to show their papers. Next, the staff report talks about the coordination with community partners. To date, staff have met with Mano a Mano, Latinos Unidos Siempre, Salem-Keizer School District, as well as faith-based organizations and nonprofits in our community. Needs identified included financial support for housing assistance, legal aid, food security, and medical needs. And as part of that effort, staff had prepared and distributed a family resource card, which is attached in the materials, which has been shared with many different organizations in the area, including groups like Northwest Human Services, Early Learning Hub, early childhood programs, faith leaders, and so on. So I really want to thank the staff for responding so quickly when we asked them to do that. Another thing that they did was engage in employee training and signage in city spaces. The city was tasked with 2 discrete actions to ensure staff were provided with clear information and awareness of city and state sanctuary policies and laws, including protocols for employees to follow in the event that federal immigration authorities appear at city facilities. The required training was made available to staff in December, with 76% having completed the training so far. They have also added the signage to delineate non-public spaces within city-owned or occupied facilities. So I just wanted to highlight this and commend the city staff for working so quickly to get this going. And I look forward to future updates.
Anyone else on that? Okay, we are moving on to item 6E, update on air service recruitment and operations at the Salem-Willamette Valley Airport. Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I would like to have a little bit more information about the MRG, the recruitment process, and what I'm really looking for is someone to come and explain how the minimum revenue guarantee is leverage for state and federal funding that is necessary at our airports for maintenance of the taxiways and runways. And I see Mr. Martin stepping forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Brian Martin, Public Works Director. There are a few questions there, I think, with that. The MRG, which is the minimum revenue guarantee, was talked about earlier this evening. That is really the city share, which we've talked about, the $100,000 per year, which is actually matching other funds from the community members. So the communities donated approximately $1.2 million. Travel Salem, community members, Marion County, our share was $300,000. So that is getting put in place so that we can try and attract a commercial airline to Salem. And what that money is for is to reimburse the airline if they don't meet minimum revenues any given month. And so that is in place then for a 3-year period. Where we're at with it, our airport consultant who was here several months ago talking about the airport has been talking to different airlines and does not have a commitment yet. There are a few airlines that are interested. What we're hoping is that there's a conference in April where we'll actually meet with those airlines in person, and hopefully we'll try and get some type of commitment from them at that time. However, there's no certainty with that. As far as the additional money that comes to the airport, if we have commercial air service, it's not so much the MRG, it's really if there's a commercial air service at the airport. If we have 10,000 or more enplanements per year, our annual allotment of federal funding goes up to $1.3 million. If it's less than 10,000 enplanements a month, it's $150,000. So getting above that 10,000 enplanement threshold, we get an extra $1.15 million per year of federal allocation. Outside of that allocation, we also submit for grants for our region, and I brought this up here just to give you an example of some of the grants we got for taxiways between 2026 and 2030, and that plan, $4.5 million for taxiway A, $850,000 for the terminal improvements, $255,000 taxiway A1 and A2, another $1.5 million in 2028, another $1.2 million in actually there's 2 allocations in 2028, and in 2029, $1.2 million, 2030, taxiway C, $3.4 million. So those are primarily discretionary funds, so you submit grant applications, and then through the federal government, during their discretionary thresholds, they can allocate money to you. I can't say that we're getting that much more discretionary funding because we have commercial air service, but I definitely think it helps. So those are some examples of what, by having commercial air service, how additional funding can come in.
Go right ahead. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I think what maybe needs a little bit of explaining is what emplanements, what the definition of emplanements are, and why having commercial air service can add to those numbers that get us to 10,000 or more, and again, then having opportunities for potentially increased grant funding.
Okay, I'm going to share that and look over my shoulder to make sure I get it correctly. An emplanement is the number of people that get on a commercial airline in Salem. So generally people get on the plane, they fly somewhere, many times they come back. You don't get credit for coming back. It's just how many people boarded a plane in Salem, a commercial airplane. We have over 40,000 flights a year of non-commercial, over 40,000 non-commercial flights per year that go through Salem. That's not part of that equation. This is really for commercial air service, and Aaron is shaking his head yes. So,
Councilor Matthews.
One other piece of data that would be helpful to come back in relation to kind of the air service is what our TOT funding has done since the airline has been gone, whether we've seen a reduction in the actual hotel nights and whether we've seen a direct reduction within the money we're receiving at Salem.
Yeah, we can check with Travel Salem on that.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we, we're on to no ordinances, on to first reading, item 7.1.
All right, so I was...
Oh, excuse me, I'll do the first reading, please. Thank you. Ordinance Bill number 226, an ordinance relating to the Fire Prevention Code, amending SRC sections 58.001, .003, .004, .190, .305, .455, and .457. Thank you.
I move to advance ordinance bill number 2-26 to second reading for enactment.
Second. Motion by Nishioka, second by Gwynn. Councilor to the motion.
I don't have anything, no.
Anyone have any questions? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke. Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to 7.1B.
Ordinance Bill number 326, an ordinance vacating a right-of-way in the vicinity of Landaggard Drive Northwest, north of Orchard Heights Road Northwest.
I move to advance ordinance bill number 3-26, which vacates right-of-way in the vicinity of Landaggard Drive Northwest, north of Orchard Heights Road Northwest, to second reading for enactment.
Councilor Varney, you want a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. It's all right. Motion by Nishioka, second by Varney. Councilor to the motion, anything? No? Okay. All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to second readings. Item 7.2.
Ordinance Bill number 126, an ordinance relating to the downtown parking district, amending SRC section 7.070, .080, .090, and 102.045, repealing SRC section 7.060, .100, .110, .120, .130, .135, .140, .150, .160, .170, .180, .190, .200, .210, .220, .240, and .250. Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Vang.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. As late as it's getting, those numbers were kind of like counting sheep to the city recorder. Thank you. We do need a motion to extend time.
I move to extend for to 10:15, just to be on the safe side.
You might want to do 10:30 because we have a few folks signed
Okay,
up for
thank
public
you.
testimony.
I didn't know what the numbers. I move that we extend to 10:30.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Gwynn. Is everybody okay with that? Anybody opposed? Okay, we're good. So we are moving on to public comment, and we're going to start with the person I had to interrupt earlier who was online. Is Addie Smith still online to testify?
Yes, I believe she is.
Great.
I'm here. I'm just going to need a minute.
Great. Go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Addie Smith. Today's Monday, February 9th, 2026. I'm speaking before the Salem City Council. I'm going to speak about 4 issues. Number 1, the Oregon legislature must pass a law that vacates all employee-employer arbitration agreement orders wherein the arbitrator has signed a pro hoc visa application for an out-of-state attorney to practice law in the state of Oregon, even in arbitration matters. Even more so, employee-employer arbitration agreements must be banned in the state. Mediation companies like JAMS, ADR, and AAA are violating state laws and allowing arbitrators to violate the law as well. Number 2, Oregon's black unemployment is 7.7% and rising. Oregon is the second most racist state in the nation. Employers in the state have no problem doing away with the Trump administration's DEI quote-unquote requirements because there were few positions, let alone corporate executive positions, with black people in them anyway. Rental assistance for black and immigrant households must be a priority every month as long as necessary or as long as the racist DEI requirements are in place. Number 3, Appeals Court Chief Judge Aaron Lagerson and Appeal Commissioner Teresa Kidd, along with several judges and prosecutors across the state, are violating the law with impunity. It's time to terminate Rachel Mortimer in the Commission on Judicial Conduct office. She is simply unfit. Speaking of unfit, in the Oregon State Bar, Lynn Davis, Nick Chowry, Helen Herschable, and Maya Kehoe must be removed as Assistant General Counsel, Deputy Counsel, Chief Executive Officer, and President, respectively, in the Oregon State Bar. Racism and discrimination run rampant in the state thanks in part to the justice system. It is shameful how black people continue to be treated in this state. I certainly will not forgive it in the midterms and especially in 2028. Number 4, I want to remind people that the Democrats built ICE. Everyone talks about ICE as if it's a Trump or Republican invention. Trump weaponizes its novel cruelty, but Democrats built, fund, and normalized it. Trump gives ICE spectacle and impunity, but Democrats gave it infrastructure. Trump can only wield ICE because Democrats had already erected its machinery. In 1996, under Bill Clinton, Democrats passed AEDPA and IIRIRA, building the legal cage ICE would later inherit. Clinton also implemented prevention through deterrence, pushing crossings into remote desert terrain. Border deaths at this time rose from dozens per year to hundreds. More than 10,000 migrants are estimated to have died in the years following this legislation. George Bush established ICE in 2003, and under President Obama, ICE was expanded, professionalized, and normalized. ICE must be abolished. I'm also not voting for anyone who supports Israel. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. We're moving on now to in-person, calling first Kathleen Thorpe, then Linnell Wilcox. So when you come forward, hit the button.
Kathleen Thorpe is left.
She's not here? Okay. Linnell Wilcox and then Lori Walker. When you come forward, please announce your name, your ward, or your address for the record.
Kathleen's not here, so I'm Linnell Wilcox and I live in Ward 1. Today I'm sharing about why we still see so many people living outside, even though we've invested so much money in homeless service, shelters, and housing, and what we can do about that. Rising rents and rising costs of food and other necessities are resulting in more people not being able to make ends meet. And now more than ever, we're hearing phone call after phone call from senior citizens whose fixed income can't keep up with inflation. Some people flee domestic violence, often leaving with nothing. Many were housewives without recent job history, now needing to start from scratch as they also experience trauma. Kids age out of foster care, often without follow-up supports. Some people give up their own place and career to be caregivers for others, and when their person dies, they have no place to live. Some people have a situation, an accident, a stroke, a brain injury, or a physical or mental disability that completely changes their ability to keep a job, manage money, or navigate life effectively. If we don't have family or friends to help with money, a sofa, or navigating systems, any of us could become homeless. But without the investments that have been made in housing people, there would be thousands more people who would still be homeless. The growth of homelessness doesn't reflect a failure of the services, although we could always improve. It reflects an economy that has been unaffordable for many. We no longer have the luxury to not see those people living on the streets because it's risen to a level where we just are going to see those people. We have some common ground. No one wants people living on the streets, and yet how we address this common goal matters. Some people are pushing for more sweeps, enforcement of livability crimes, and mandated treatment. Yet lack of restrooms, trash bags, trash cans, and all public space technically bans camping and sheltering yourself from the elements. So it's impossible to live outside without breaking some livability laws. It's also impossible to enforce homelessness away. Homelessness or sheltered, some people should be in jail or prison. Yet, do we really want to jail people for livability crimes? We don't have enough jails, detox, rehab, and mental health beds and staffing. Every option will cost money beyond a city's capacity, so collaboration will be necessary. Instead of further criminalizing homelessness or livability crimes or being bad neighbors by sweeping people to a different place, money is better invested in restrooms, more managed camps, shelters, affordable housing, housing vouchers, and supports. Evidence-based, data-driven actions that have successfully sheltered thousands of individuals. There, but for the grace of the universe, go any of us. Thank you.
All right. Lori Walker and then Rachel Atchison.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Lori Walker, Salem, Ward 2. I usually start out telling stories by saying everyone has a story. A man worked his whole life at a company here in Salem. He became very ill. He ran out of sick time. He lost his job. Then he lost his home. He moved into his vehicle. Then when the vehicle stopped running or when it got towed away, then he moved into a tent. And then somehow he lost the tent. All the while he was fighting a terminal illness. That is not unusual. We have many unsheltered people on the streets of Salem who are terminally ill, who have lost their ability to pay rent or have a home. So I began volunteering on the streets with unsheltered people, many of whom were my former patients at the state hospital. Cost of care at the Oregon State Hospital is approximately $60,000 a month. A group home is approximately $12,000 a month. 11 to 12 years ago, the state legislature cut the funding for group homes. And then we've seen what's happened with our broken mental health system since then. The new state hospital opened with fewer beds than the old one. Police used to take people to the state hospital on police officer holds. people used to walk in the door voluntarily. We put beds on the floor to take in anyone who needed to take. Well, now you can't get there unless you have a judge's order or unless you're placed there under the Psychiatric Security Review Board. The patients then and now could be any of us, grandparents, parents, child, sibling, aunt, uncle, cousins, neighbors. I used to be proud to work there for a long time. We were rated at this one of the top state hospitals in the country. I heard Ron Wyden say today that we are currently at 49th. So that's partly where our mentally ill, unsheltered problem comes from. Salem's current mayor, Julie Hoy, wants unsheltered people criminalized, including disabled and mentally ill. That promotes negativity and hate towards them, community-wide. What part of Oregon's broken mental health system do you not understand, Mayor Hoy? There are no extra psych beds. There are no extra jail beds. As a legal guardian and advocate for mentally ill, I respectfully ask that you, Mayor Hoy, educate yourself regarding disability and mental illness and moving forward with your criminal.
Your time has expired. Rachel Atchison and Otto.
Hello again, Rachel Atchison, Ward 3. So I came up again to say that I couldn't believe that Mayor Hoy wouldn't join the other Oregon mayors and sign on to the governor's letter to stop violent immigration activity. And then, while I was sitting in the audience, I read on Salem Reporter that you said you never got the letter. So it just made me more angry because that letter came out on February 5th. And today's February 9th after 5 o'clock that you decided to say I never got asked to sign this letter. Do you not read the newspapers? Did you not think that you should have signed on to the letter? Because I tell you, I got family in Bend and I got family in Portland and they're asking me, what the hell is wrong with your mayor? Why would she not sign on to this letter? So, Then we have yet another incident of the mass feds racially profiling and assaulting a Salem resident. And even if you are of the opinion, which is baffling to me, but I read in some of the written testimony, that there are human beings who are illegal, baffles me. Well, anyway, that woman was an American citizen. So you also said in a recent interview with Salem Business Journal that our city council should not be involved in national politics. But when national politics come brutalizing our communities, this community, it does become your problem. So going forward, Salem police are telling us that there is nothing they can do about this lawless violence, that they cannot provide public safety in these instances. So I just ask everyone to remember this the next time their department is up here asking for more taxpayer money.
Otto? Looks like Otto isn't here. So with nothing further, we're adjourned.